The gilded invitation trembled in Sarah's hands as she read the words that shattered her carefully rebuilt life. Alpha King Callum Blackthorne cordially invites you to witness his mating ceremony and to Lady Vivian Ashford. Your presence would be memorable. Memorable? Sarah laughed, but there was no humour in it. The sound echoed through her small herb-scented kitchen in Moonhaven, where she'd built a life from the ashes of the one Callum had burned to the ground 3 years ago. Mama? She turned to find Kai standing in the doorway, his dark eyes, Callum's eyes, watching her with that unnerving awareness that no 3-year-old should possess. Behind him, his sister Luna clutched her worn-stuffed rabbit, her face pale. "The bad man is coming," Luna whispered. "I saw him in my dreams." Sarah's heart clenched. She crossed the kitchen and knelt before her children, tucking the invitation behind her back. "No one's coming, sweetheart. You just had a nightmare." But Luna's visions were never just nightmares. The child saw things, true things, that hadn't happened yet. Just like Kai could call every bird and wolf in the forest to his side with a thought, and Asher could lift furniture that grown wolves struggled with. Her children were extraordinary, powerful, everything Callum had said she could never give him. "Where's your brother?" Sarah asked, forcing brightness into her voice. "Asher's moving the woodpile again," Kai reported matter-of-factly. "He says he's making a fort." Of course he was. Sarah stood and moved to the window. Sure enough, her youngest son, younger than Kai by 3 minutes, was stacking logs twice his size with ease. His small face scrunched in concentration. 3 years ago, Alpha King Callum Blackthorne had rejected her as his mate. Standing before the entire pack council, he'd spoken words that still cut like silver. "A barren mate is no mate at all. I need heirs. I need strength. You've given me nothing but disappointment." She'd been 22 and desperately in love with him. The mate bond had sung between them, golden and perfect, until the months passed and her womb remained empty. The pack whispered, the council pressured, and Callum, who'd once looked at her like she hung the moon, began to look through her instead. The rejection had nearly killed her. Would have killed her if she hadn't discovered 2 weeks later that she was pregnant. Not with 1 heir, but 3. By then, Callum had already announced his intention to pursue Lady Vivian Ashford, the daughter of the Northern Alpha, known for her impeccable bloodline and proven fertility from a previous mating. Sarah had run, taken nothing but her broken heart and the lives growing inside her, and disappeared into Moonhaven, a small pack on the kingdom's edge where no one asked questions and healers were desperately needed. "Sarah?" She turned to find Mira standing in the doorway, a basket of fresh bread on her hip, and concern etched across her kind face. Mira was the first friend Sarah had made here, the one who'd helped deliver 3 babies in the middle of a snowstorm, and never once questioned Sarah's story about a mate who died in battle. "Don't tell me, that's what I think it is," Mira said, spotting the invitation on the counter. Sarah didn't answer. Couldn't. Mira set down the bread and picked up the invitation, her eyes scanning the elegant script. Her expression darkened. "That absolute bastard. He's inviting you to watch him mate another woman?" "He doesn't know," Sarah said quietly. "About them." "Then keep it that way." Mira crushed the invitation in her fist. "Don't go. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you hurt again. Stay here, where you're safe, where they're safe." Safe. Sarah looked at her children. Kai had joined his sister on the floor, the 2 of them communicating in that silent way twins sometimes did. Through the window, she could see Asher's fort growing impossibly tall. For 3 years she'd hidden, lied, told everyone that her children's father had died honourably, that she'd come to Moonhaven to heal from her grief. She'd built a quiet life around her babies, teaching them to hide their gifts, to be ordinary, but they weren't ordinary, and every day their powers grew stronger. "He called me Barren," Sarah heard herself say, "stood before everyone who mattered and said I was worthless because I couldn't give him an heir." Sarah. "I was pregnant, Mira, already carrying his children when he rejected me. 3 of them, 3 perfect, powerful heirs." She laughed again, and this time it had an edge sharp enough to draw blood, and he threw me away like I was nothing. Mira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. What are you thinking? Sarah picked up the invitation, smoothing out the creases Mira had made. The paper was heavy, expensive. Probably cost more than she made in a month. I'm thinking I'm tired of hiding. Tired of running. Tired of letting him pretend I never existed. He's the Alpha King now. He has the entire kingdom at his command. And I have his heirs. Sarah met her friend's eyes. 3 of them. Children he declared he needed so desperately that he destroyed our bond to get them. I wonder what he'll think when he realizes what he threw away. This is a bad idea. Probably. He could try to take them from you. He could try. Something fierce and protective rose in Sarah's chest. I'd like to see him succeed. Mira studied her for a long moment, then sighed. You've changed, you know. When you first came here, you were broken, barely holding yourself together. I had to become someone new, Sarah said simply, for them. And she had. The girl who'd loved Callum Blackthorne with her whole heart was gone. Burned away by rejection and reborn in the fire of motherhood. She'd learned to heal, to fight, to protect. She'd learned that she didn't need a mate to be complete, that she was enough, more than enough, all on her own. She'd learned she was stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever believed. If you do this, Mira said slowly, there's no going back. Once he knows, everything changes. Everything already changed. Sarah looked down at the invitation. Your presence would be memorable. He wants memorable, I'll give him memorable. Mama, Luna's small voice drew her attention. Are we going somewhere? Sarah knelt again, gathering her daughter close. Kai pressed against her other side, and through the window, she saw Asher abandon his fort and race toward the house, as if sensing his siblings' distress. Maybe, she told them honestly. She'd never lied to her children, not about anything important. There's somewhere I might need to go, but if I do, you'll come with me. The bad man, Luna whispered. You're going to see the bad man. Sarah's throat tightened. Luna didn't understand, couldn't understand, that the bad man was her father. None of them did. How did you explain to 3-year-olds that their father had rejected them before they were even born? I'm going to see someone, Sarah corrected gently. Someone who needs to learn a very important lesson about what happens when you underestimate people. Asher burst through the door, somehow knowing he was needed. He wrapped his small arms around Sarah's neck with a strength that would alarm anyone who didn't know him. We protect you, Mama. And I protect you, Sarah promised, holding all 3 of them close, always. That night, after the children were asleep, Kai curled around Luna like a guardian. Asher starfished across his own small bed. Sarah stood at their doorway and watched them breathe. They looked like angels when they slept. Perfect and peaceful, without a hint of the power that coursed through their veins. Kai's dark hair fell across his forehead, the same way Callum's used to. Luna's delicate features were pure Sarah, except for the stubborn set of her jaw. That was all Blackthorne. And Asher had somehow gotten the best of both of them. Callum's strength and presence, Sarah's heart and determination. They were everything Callum had claimed to want. Everything he'd destroyed her for not providing, and he had no idea they existed. The invitation sat on her nightstand, its gilt edges catching the moonlight. Your presence would be memorable. Callum thought he was twisting the knife, forcing her to watch him mate another woman. He thought she'd come broken and defeated, a reminder of what he'd discarded. He thought he knew her, but the woman he'd rejected 3 years ago was gone. In her place stood a mother, a healer, a survivor, someone who'd learned that real strength had nothing to do with bloodlines or councils or alpha kings. Real strength was raising 3 extraordinary children alone. It was rebuilding yourself from nothing. It was loving so fiercely that you'd burn the world down before you let anyone hurt what was yours. Sarah looked at her sleeping children and whispered, It's time your father learned the truth about what he threw away. Chapter 2. The crystal moon palace rose before them like something out of a dream, or a nightmare, depending on perspective. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she took in the soaring crystal spires, The immaculate grounds, the sheer overwhelming wealth and power the place represented. This had almost been her home, would have been if things had gone differently. It's shiny, Asher observed from his car seat, pressing his nose against the window. Everything's white, Kai added, his dark eyes tracking the guards in their pristine uniforms stationed at every entrance. Luna said nothing, but her small hand found Sarah's shoulder from the back seat. When Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror, her daughter's face was pale, her silver eyes unfocused. "Luna? Baby, are you having a vision?" The little girl blinked, and focus returned. "Lots of people," she whispered. "They're all going to look at us." "Let them look," Sarah said, more confidently than she felt. "We have every right to be here." She dressed carefully that morning, not in the simple healer's clothes she usually wore, but in a deep emerald dress that brought out the green in her eyes and clung to curves that 3 years and 3 babies had only enhanced. Her dark hair fell in waves down her back, and she wore the only jewellery she'd kept from her old life, a silver pendant her grandmother had given her, shaped like a crescent moon. The children wore matching outfits in shades of grey and silver, looking like little royalty themselves. Sarah had learned early on that expensive clothes drew less suspicion than cheap ones. People saw what they expected to see, and right now she wanted them to see a confident woman with 3 beautiful children, not a rejected mate crawling back in shame. The parking area was already crowded with luxury vehicles. Pack members from across the kingdom had come to witness their Alpha King's mating ceremony. Sarah recognized some of the cars, the family crests painted on doors, the Ashfords' black SUV, the Silverpaws' Mercedes, the Nightshade's Tesla, all the important families, all the people who'd watched her rejection 3 years ago and done nothing. "Mama, I don't like this place," Kai said, his voice tight. "It smells wrong." Sarah's protective instincts flared. Kai's nose was sharp, sharper than most adult wolves. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Too many wolves trying to be alpha," he said seriously. "They're all growling inside." Out of the mouths of babes. Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to face her children. "Listen to me, all 3 of you. Today is going to be strange. People are going to stare, and they're going to say things. But you stay close to Mama, you hold your heads high, and you remember that you are strong and loved and perfect, exactly as you are. Understand?" "Yes, Mama," they chorused. "And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." Asher's small face set in determined lines. "I'll protect you, Mama." "We'll protect each other," Sarah corrected gently. She took a deep breath, said a quick prayer to the moon goddess, and opened her door. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as she lifted Asher from his car seat. Heads turned as she helped Luna and Kai out. The whispers started before she'd even closed the car door. "Is that—" "It can't be. I thought she was dead." "She has children?" Sarah kept her spine straight and her expression calm as she took Luna's hand on one side and Kai's on the other. Asher wrapped his hand in her dress, staying close to her leg. Together they walked toward the palace entrance. The whispers grew louder. "That's Seraphina Thorne, the rejected Luna." Callum said she was Barren. "Those can't be—" "Look at them. They're beautiful. Whose children are they?" The crowd parted before them like water, everyone staring, no one quite brave enough to approach. Sarah felt dozens of eyes tracking their progress up the pristine white steps, through the massive doors, into the soaring entrance hall where chandeliers sparkled overhead and the marble floors gleamed. And that's when she caught his scent. Pine and midnight and wild mountains. The scent that had once meant home and safety and love. The scent that now made her wolf bristle with remembered pain. Callum. She didn't have to look to know where he was. The mate bond, rejected but never fully severed, pulled at her chest like a fishhook. 3 years apart, and her body still knew exactly where he stood. Sarah forced herself not to react, to keep walking with her children toward the ceremony grounds visible through the far doors. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her falter. But then Kai went rigid beside her. His head snapped up, his nostrils flaring, and a low sound, almost a growl, rumbled in his small chest. "Kai," Sarah warned softly. "That's him," her son said. his voice carrying that eerie certainty that still sometimes surprised her. "That's the bad man Luna sees. That's—" "Not now," Sarah cut him off, squeezing his hand. "Later, I promise." Through the crowd, she felt the moment Callum's attention locked onto them. The air pressure changed. Every wolf in the vicinity straightened, responding to their alpha's sudden alertness. Sarah kept walking, one foot in front of the other, nearly to the ceremony grounds now, just a little further. "Serafina." The voice was deeper than she remembered, rougher. It cut through the whispered conversations like a blade, commanding absolute silence. Sarah stopped. She had no choice. When an Alpha King spoke your name like that, your wolf obeyed, even if you didn't want to. Slowly, she turned. Callum Blackthorne stood 20 feet away, and the sight of him hit her like a physical blow. He'd always been handsome, but 3 years had transformed him from beautiful to devastating. Broader in the shoulders, harder in the face, with new lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and heavy burdens. His dark hair was shorter now, styled with precision. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her car, and every inch of him radiated power and authority. He looked like an Alpha King. He looked like a stranger. His amber eyes, wolf eyes even in human form, fixed on her face, then dropped to the children at her sides. She saw the exact moment recognition hit. His nostrils flared, his body went absolutely still. He could scent them, could smell his own bloodline in theirs, as clear as a signature. "Impossible," Callum breathed. The crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. From somewhere behind Callum, a woman's sharp voice cut through the tension. "Callum? Darling, who is this?" Lady Vivian Ashford emerged from the crowd like a vision in ivory and gold. She was everything Sarah wasn't. Tall, blonde, willowy, with the kind of aristocratic beauty that graced magazine covers. Her dress probably cost more than Sarah made in a year. Diamond earrings sparkled at her ears. She looked like she'd been born to stand beside an Alpha King. She looked at Sarah like something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. "This is a private ceremony," Vivienne said coldly. "Security should have stopped you at—" Her words died as she caught sight of the children. Her pale eyes went wide, then narrow with calculation. "Callum, what is this?" But Callum wasn't listening. He was staring at Kai, who stared back with the same amber eyes, the same stubborn jaw, the same proud bearing. Recognition and confusion and something that might have been hope warred across his face. "Your eyes," he said roughly, addressing Kai directly. "Boy, what colour are your eyes?" Kai lifted his chin, every inch his father's son. "Gold," he said clearly, "like the sun." Callum's gaze shifted to Luna, who shrank back against Sarah's side. "And yours, little one?" "Silver," Luna whispered, "like the moon." "Mine are green," Asher announced proudly. Like emeralds, that's what Mama says." The effect on the crowd was instantaneous. Gasps, excited whispers. Someone, an elderly female wolf with silver in her hair, actually stumbled forward, her hand pressed to her mouth. "The 3 blessed heirs," she breathed. "By the goddess. The prophecy is true." "What prophecy?" Vivian demanded, but no one answered her. The whispers were spreading like wildfire now. Sarah caught fragments as they rippled through the assembled wolves. 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 emerald. The ancient texts speak of 3 who will unite. Born of the strongest bloodline. Only appears once in 1,000 years. Sarah felt the situation spiraling out of her control. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She'd planned to arrive quietly, to remind Callum of what he'd lost, to show him she'd survived his rejection. She hadn't planned on ancient prophecies or public spectacles. "Beta Marcus." Callum's voice cracked like a whip, and a man Sarah vaguely recognized stepped forward from the crowd. Marcus had been Callum's second-in-command, even when Sarah knew him. A steady presence at the Alpha's right hand. He was older now, greying at the temples, but his face was as serious as ever, until he saw the children. Then he went absolutely white. "No," Marcus said, so quietly Sarah almost didn't hear it. "It can't be. They're supposed to be—" He cut himself off, his eyes darting between Callum and Sarah. "Supposed to be what, Marcus?" Callum's voice was dangerously soft. Nothing, Alpha. Marcus swallowed hard. I need to check something in the archives. Excuse me. He practically fled, pushing through the crowd with uncharacteristic rudeness. Sarah's instincts prickled. Marcus knew something. But what? Well, Vivian said, her voice dripping acid as she recovered her composure. This is all very touching, but these children clearly belong to someone else, perhaps one of the guests. We should find their mother, and I am their mother. The words dropped into the silence like stones. Sarah met Callum's eyes directly, pouring every ounce of strength and defiance she possessed into her gaze. I'm Seraphina Thorne, and these are my children. Liar, Vivian hissed. Everyone knows you're Barren. Callum told us. Callum told you what he believed, Sarah interrupted, surprised by how calm her voice sounded when her heart was hammering against her ribs. He was wrong. Then who's... Vivian started, but Callum held up a hand, silencing her. He was staring at Sarah now, really seeing her for the first time since she'd walked through the doors. She watched the calculations happening behind his eyes, watched him count backward, watched the moment realization crashed over him like a tidal wave. When? The single word was raw, scraped from somewhere deep in his chest. When did you know? 2 weeks after you rejected me. The crowd gasped. Vivian made a strangled sound. But Callum looked like she'd driven a knife into his chest. You were pregnant when I... He couldn't finish the sentence. His eyes dropped to the children again, lingering on each face. They're mine. It wasn't a question. But Sarah answered anyway. Yes. Impossible. Vivian's shriek echoed off the marble floors. This is clearly some scheme, some desperate attempt to... Smell them, Sarah said quietly, holding Callum's gaze. Your wolf knows the truth. And it did. She could see it in the way Callum's hands trembled, the way his breathing had gone ragged. The mate bond might be rejected. But the blood connection between an alpha and his heirs was absolute. Undeniable. You kept them from me, Callum said. And now his voice held an edge that made several nearby wolves step back. You hid my children for 3 years. The audacity of it, the sheer unmitigated gall, snapped something in Sarah's carefully maintained composure. I kept them safe, she corrected, her voice sharp enough to cut. From a father who threw me away like garbage for failing to give him heirs. What was I supposed to do, Callum? Come crawling back pregnant after you publicly rejected me? Beg you to take me back? Give you children you'd already decided I couldn't provide? They're my heirs. They're my children. The words exploded out of her with 3 years of pent-up fury and pain. I carried them alone, gave birth to them alone, raised them alone while you moved on with your perfect fertile replacement. You wanted nothing to do with me, remember? I was barren, worthless, not worthy of being your Luna. The crowd was utterly silent now, every eye fixed on the confrontation unfolding before them. Somewhere in the back of her mind, Sarah knew this was a disaster, that she was burning every bridge, destroying any chance of a peaceful resolution. She didn't care. You don't get to stand there and act betrayed, she continued, her voice shaking with emotion. You don't get to pretend you're the victim. I would have told you if you'd given me even one reason to believe you wouldn't rip them from my arms and cast me aside again. But you didn't. You made it very clear that my only value was as a broodmare, and when you thought I'd failed at that, you destroyed me. Seraphina, don't. She held up a hand, stopping him. Don't say my name like that. Like you still have the right. I'm their father. Being a father is more than biology, Sarah shot back. It's showing up, being there, loving them unconditionally. You rejected me before they were even born. What makes you think you deserve them now? Callum's face was a mask of barely controlled rage and anguish. His wolf was right there in his eyes, demanding acknowledgement of his pups. They're blackthorns. They belong... Excuse me. A child's voice, high and clear, cut through the argument like a bell. Are you our daddy? Sarah's heart stopped. She looked down to find Asher staring up at Callum with open curiosity. His emerald eyes, so different from both parents, so uniquely his own, wide and guileless. Because Mama said our daddy died, Asher continued matter-of-factly, But Luna's been dreaming about a man who looks like Kai, and you look like Kai, so maybe Mama was wrong? Or maybe you're his ghost? Can wolf ghosts get married? Is that what a mating ceremony is? Despite everything, the anger, the pain, the impossible situation, several people in the crowd made sounds that might have been suppressed laughter. Even Sarah felt something crack in her chest at her son's innocent logic. Callum dropped to one knee, bringing himself to Asher's eye level. Up close, the resemblance between father and sons was unmistakable. "I'm not a ghost," he said roughly. Yes, I'm your father." "Oh." Asher considered this. "You're not dead then." "No." "That's good. Mama cries sometimes when she thinks we're sleeping. I think she misses you." He paused, then added with devastating honesty, "But she also says you were mean to her, so I don't know if I should like you or not." Callum flinched like he'd been struck. His eyes lifted to Sarah's, and she saw everything there: regret, anguish, desperate longing, and a pain that matched her own. But before anyone could speak, before Callum could respond to his son's innocent indictment, Luna suddenly went rigid. Her silver eyes rolled back. Her small body began to shake. "Luna!" Sarah dropped to her knees, catching her daughter as the little girl's legs buckled. "Baby, what is it? What do you see?" "This is ridiculous," Vivian snapped. "Someone get security. This woman and her supposedly prophetic children need to be—" "Daddy!" Luna's scream cut through every other sound. Her eyes focusing with laser precision on Callum. "Daddy's in danger. The bad lady put poison in his cup." Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Then Vivian laughed, a brittle, nervous sound. "The child is clearly disturbed, making wild accusations to—" "Which cup?" Callum's voice was deadly calm as he stood, his full attention on Luna. "Little one, which cup?" Luna's shaking hand pointed. Not at the ceremony grounds, but toward a small table near the entrance to the gardens, where crystal glasses of champagne waited for the post-ceremony toast. "The tall one? With the gold rim. She put something in it when nobody was looking. I saw it in my dream. And then I saw it happen real. You drink it and you fall down and you don't get up, and Mama cries and cries and—" "Someone, fetch that glass," Callum commanded, "now, and someone find Marcus. Tell him to bring a poison specialist from the healing ward." "This is absurd." Vivian's voice had gone shrill. "You're going to disrupt our mating ceremony because a 3-year-old had a nightmare." "Luna doesn't have nightmares," Kai said quietly, stepping forward to stand beside his sister. "She has visions. She saw the pack house fire 3 days before it happened. She saw old Mrs. Henderson's heart attack. She sees true." Callum's eyes narrowed as he looked between his children, then at Sarah. "Is this accurate?" Sarah lifted her chin. "My daughter has the gift of sight. My son," she gestured to Kai, "can command any animal. And Asher has the strength of 10 grown wolves." She paused, letting that sink in. "These are the children you said I couldn't give you, Callum. These are the worthless heirs of a barren mate." The look on his face was worth every moment of pain she'd endured. A guard appeared with the champagne glass, holding it carefully. Another arrived with an elderly woman in healer's robes who took one sniff and went pale. "Wolfsbane," she said grimly, concentrated. "Enough to kill an alpha within minutes." The crowd erupted. Vivian's face went from pink to white to grey. She backed up a step, then another. "That's someone must have— I would never—" "Seize her," Callum said quietly. "Now." Chapter 3. The guards moved toward Vivian, but she was faster. She spun on her heel, her elegant composure shattering like glass. "Don't you dare touch me. I am Lady Vivian Ashford, daughter of the Northern Alpha, and I will not be manhandled on the word of a child." "A child who just saved my life," Callum said, his voice cold enough to frost the air. His eyes, fully wolf now, burning amber, fixed on his would-be mate with an expression that made several pack members step back. "Guards, detain her, gently but firmly." "This is a setup." Vivian's voice climbed higher as 2 guards flanked her, their hands hovering near her arms but not quite touching. "Can't you see? That woman shows up with convenient children and convenient accusations right before our mating ceremony. She's trying to destroy us." "The only thing being destroyed here is your credibility," Sarah said quietly, still kneeling beside Luna. who had stopped shaking but remained pale and drawn. "My daughter has no reason to lie." "Your daughter is 3 years old. Children lie all the time." "Not about poison," the elderly healer interjected, still holding the contaminated glass. "And not with this kind of detail." She specifically identified wolfsbane and silver, the classic assassination combination. How would a child know that unless she truly saw it? Vivian opened her mouth, then closed it again. Sarah could see the calculation behind her eyes, the desperate search for an escape route. For just a moment, she almost felt sorry for the woman. Almost. Then Vivian's gaze landed on the triplets, and something ugly twisted across her perfect features. "Those children are abominations. No 3-year-old should have powers like that. They're probably demon-touched, and you're all fools for—" The crack echoed through the hall like a gunshot. It took Sarah a moment to realize it hadn't been a gunshot at all. It was stone. The massive archway leading to the ceremony grounds was splitting, a jagged fracture racing up the carved marble like lightning. "Everyone back," someone shouted, but there wasn't time. The archway groaned, a sound like the world ending, and began to collapse. Guests scattered, screaming, but a group of elderly pack members had been standing directly beneath it, too slow to move, their faces turned upward in horror as tons of marble and crystal plummeted toward them. Sarah's heart stopped. She couldn't reach them. No one could. They were going to die, crushed beneath rubble, and there was nothing anyone could. Asher was moving. Her baby, her 3-year-old son, who should have been terrified, who should have been clinging to her, was running toward the collapsing archway with impossible speed. "Asher, no!" Sarah's scream tore from her throat, but he didn't stop. He planted himself beneath the falling stone, his small body impossibly steady, and raised his arms. The archway hit his hands and stopped. Silence crashed over the hall, broken only by the sound of settling dust. Everyone, wolves, guards, nobles, even Vivian, stared in absolute shock as a 3-year-old boy held up several tons of marble and crystal like it weighed nothing at all. Asher's face was scrunched in concentration, his emerald eyes bright with determination. "Mama says we help people," he grunted, his small voice carrying in the stunned quiet. "These people need help. Get them out." Callum's voice cracked through the paralysis like a whip. "Move! Now!" Guards rushed forward, pulling the elderly wolves to safety. It took precious seconds. Seconds where Asher stood unmoving, his small arms bearing a burden that should have crushed him flat, before the last person was clear. "Okay, little man," Callum said, moving to stand beside his son. His voice was gentle now, almost reverent. "You can let it go now. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Asher released the archway and dove sideways just as Callum grabbed him, rolling them both clear as the marble finally completed its collapse with a deafening crash. Dust billowed up, obscuring everything, and Sarah was running before she'd consciously decided to move, her heart in her throat, Luna and Kai close behind her. "Asher, Callum. We're okay, Mama." Asher's voice emerged from the dust cloud, followed by the boy himself, held securely in Callum's arms. Both of them were covered in white powder, but neither appeared hurt. Sarah's legs nearly gave out with relief. She reached for her son, and Callum handed him over without hesitation, though she saw the reluctance in his eyes, the primal need of a wolf to hold his pup close after danger. "That was very brave," Sarah told Asher, checking him over with shaking hands. "And very, very dangerous. You could have been hurt." "But I wasn't," Asher said reasonably, "and neither were the old people, so it worked out good." "Well," Sarah corrected automatically, then laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "It worked out well." "That's what I said." Around them, the crowd had erupted into chaos. Some people were helping the injured. There were cuts and bruises from flying debris, though thankfully nothing serious. Others were staring at Asher like he'd sprouted wings, and still others were looking between Callum and the triplets with expressions of dawning understanding. "Your Majesty." A middle-aged woman in healer's robes pushed through the crowd, her medical bag clutched in one hand. "I'm Dr. Reeves, the royal healer. I must examine the children. That display of strength was unprecedented." "They're fine," Sarah said automatically, her protective instincts flaring. "Just shaken up. We should go, please. Dr. Reeves's voice was kind but firm. I'm not questioning your care, Luna Sarah, but if these children truly are the three blessed heirs of prophecy, we need to understand their capabilities, for their safety as much as anyone else's. Sarah wanted to refuse, wanted to gather her babies and run, the way she'd been running for 3 years. But Kai tugged on her sleeve, his dark eyes serious. It's okay, Mama, he said quietly. She's not the bad one. Luna nodded agreement. The bad one is the pretty lady with the mean eyes. All eyes turned to Vivienne, who was still held between 2 guards. She'd gone very quiet during the archway collapse, her face an unreadable mask. The children are clearly disturbed, she said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. Traumatized by their unstable mother's delusions, they need help, not examination. They need answers, Callum corrected, and so do I. He looked at Sarah, and she saw the question in his eyes, not a command, but a request. Will you let Dr. Reeves examine them, please? I need to know. I need to understand what I've missed. The pain in his voice was almost her undoing. Sarah took a breath, looked at her 3 children, who looked back at her with trust and confidence that made her chest ache, and nodded. All right, but I'm staying with them. I wouldn't dream of separating you, Dr. Reeves said gently. They moved to a side room, away from the crowd, but still within the palace. Dr. Reeves worked efficiently, examining each child with practiced hands, while Sarah hovered nearby and Callum stood in the doorway, unable to look away. The healer checked their reflexes, their eyes, their teeth. She drew small blood samples. Kai didn't flinch, Luna only whimpered a little, and Asher asked if he could keep the needle, and ran them through some kind of portable analyzer that beeped and whirred. Finally, she sat back, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. The DNA markers are unmistakable, Huaro said. Looking between Sarah and Callum, these children carry the royal Blackthorn bloodline, not just any Blackthorn blood, the direct royal line, the strongest concentration I've ever seen. They're definitely your biological children, Your Majesty. Callum made a sound like he'd been punched. But that's impossible, Dr. Reeves continued, frowning at her analyzer. 3 years ago, Luna Sarah was examined by Dr. Morrison, and he declared her unable to conceive. I reviewed his notes myself. He was absolutely certain. He was wrong, Sarah said tightly. Or he was deceived, Dr. Reeves said slowly. These readings, there's something else here. Some kind of residual magical signature, very faint, but present in all 3 children's blood. And, she looked up at Sarah with concern, in yours as well, Luna. The room went very still. What kind of magical signature? Callum's voice was dangerously soft. Concealment magic, very sophisticated. The kind that would hide a pregnancy from detection, even from the mother herself, in some cases. Dr. Reeves set down her analyzer. Someone put a spell on these children, on all of them. The memory hit Sarah like a physical blow. 3 years ago, the packed doctor's office. The sympathetic look on Dr. Morrison's face as he delivered the news. I'm sorry, Luna Sarah. You're simply unable to conceive. Some wolves aren't meant to bear children. The crushing weight of failure. The look in Callum's eyes when she told him. Disappointment turning to resignation, turning to cold calculation. And before that, weeks earlier, a chance encounter in the market. A woman with silver-streaked hair and knowing eyes, offering her a fertility tea that would help her conceive. Oh, goddess, Sarah breathed, the pieces falling into place. Morgana. Who? Callum demanded. A witch. She approached me 2 months before the doctor declared me barren. Said she could help me conceive. Gave me a tea to drink. Sarah's hands were shaking now. I was desperate. I knew the council was pressuring you. Knew you needed an heir. So I drank it. Every day for a week. And then? Dr. Reeves prompted gently. And then nothing. I felt fine. Better than fine, actually. But I still wasn't pregnant, or so I thought. When I finally went to the doctor, Sarah closed her eyes. He said I'd never be able to have children, that my womb was damaged somehow, inhospitable. I was devastated. The tea didn't make you infertile, Dr. Reeves said slowly. It made you pregnant and then hid the pregnancy. Classic dark magic. Give the victim what they want, then make them think they've lost it. The cruelest kind of curse. But why? Callum's hands were clenched into fists. Why would anyone do that? Your Majesty. They all turned. Marcus stood in the doorway, his face pale and drawn. Behind him, held between two more guards, was a woman Sarah recognized with a jolt of shock. Morgana, the witch from the market. She looked older now, more haggard, but her silver-streaked hair and dark eyes were unmistakable. I found her trying to leave through the service entrance, Marcus said grimly. She was very insistent she had nothing to do with today's events, very insistent indeed. Because I don't, Morgana snapped, but there was fear in her eyes. I haven't practiced dark magic in 3 years. I gave it up, I swear on the goddess. Then perhaps you'd like to explain the concealment spell on the Luna and her children, Dr. Reeves said coldly. Morgana's face crumpled. She suddenly looked every one of her centuries, ancient and weary and afraid. I was paid, she whispered, paid very well to ensure the Luna couldn't produce an heir. I didn't know she was already pregnant when I gave her the tea. The spell was supposed to prevent conception, not hide it. But magic has its own will sometimes, and when I realized what had happened... You said nothing, Sarah finished, her voice hollow. You let me think I was barren, let me be rejected, let me suffer. I was afraid, Morgana's eyes were wet. The person who paid me, they said terrible things would happen if I spoke. And I'm a coward, I admit it. I took the money and I ran. And I've regretted it every day since. Who? Callum's voice could have cut steel. Who paid you to curse my mate? Morgana's gaze slid to the doorway where more guards were bringing a struggling Vivian back into the room. The lady's perfect composure had finally shattered completely, her hair dishevelled and her dress torn at the shoulder. Her, Morgana said simply. Lady Vivian Ashford paid me to ensure Seraphina Thorne would never bear the Alpha King's children. The explosion was immediate. Callum moved toward Vivian with deadly intent, his wolf fully surfaced, only Marcus's quick intervention stopping him from doing something he'd regret. She's lying, Vivian shrieked. This is all lies. I wouldn't... You cursed her. Callum's voice was barely human. You poisoned me. You tried to prevent the 3 blessed heirs from being born. Give me one reason why I shouldn't execute you right here and now. Because I'm not the one in charge. The words burst from Vivian like a dam breaking. I was just following orders. They promised me power, promised I'd be queen, promised... She cut herself off. But it was too late. Who promised you? Marcus demanded. Vivian, who have you been working with? The lady's shoulders slumped in defeat. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. The Shadow Pack. They've been planning this for years. Get me close to you, remove your true mate, prevent the prophecy children from being born, then at the mating ceremony poison you and throw the kingdom into chaos during the succession crisis. She laughed bitterly. It almost worked too. If that brat hadn't seen the poison... Callum's fist connected with the wall beside Vivian's head, leaving a crater in the marble. How many others? How many traitors are in my court? I don't know all of them. They kept us compartmentalized, but... Vivian's eyes darted around wildly. But your beta knows more than he's saying. Ask him. Ask Marcus about the night 3 years ago, when Lady Sarah disappeared. All eyes turned to Marcus. The beta's face had gone from pale to grey. Your Majesty, he said quietly, there's something else. Something I should have told you 3 years ago, but I was sworn to secrecy. I was told it was for the good of the pack. Speak, Callum commanded. Marcus took a breath. The night Luna Sarah left the palace, after the rejection, I was ordered to follow her. To make sure she left the territory without causing trouble, but when I tracked her, I found her collapsed in the forest, 3 miles from the border. She was bleeding and barely conscious. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered that night, remembered the pain, the cramping, the fear that she was losing the babies she'd only just discovered she carried. I called for help, Marcus continued, and someone came. A healer, they said. They examined the Luna, gave her something to drink and told me she'd be fine. That the stress of the rejection had just caused some complications. They made me swear not to tell anyone, said it would only cause more pain for everyone involved. He looked at Callum with anguished eyes. I thought I was helping. I thought... Who? Sarah's voice was sharp. Who was the healer, Marcus? I don't know. I never saw their face. They wore a hood, kept to the shadows, but they knew you were pregnant. They said... He swallowed hard. They said the babies were strong, that they'd survive. And then they made me forget. Not completely, but enough that I didn't think about it again until I saw those children today and everything came rushing back. Compulsion magic, Dr. Reeves said grimly. Illegal in every pact territory, but effective. Callum looked like he was going to be sick. He turned to Sarah, and she saw everything in his face. The horror, the guilt, the desperate need to fix something that had been broken beyond repair. Seraphina, he said hoarsely, I rejected you when you were pregnant with our children. I threw you out. I nearly, goddess, you could have died. They could have died, and I would never have known. Never have. No, Sarah cut him off. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking all over again. You don't get to do this. You don't get to blame magic or conspiracy or anyone else. You rejected me, Callum, not because of a spell, but because you believed I was worthless without an heir. The curse didn't make you cruel. It just gave you an excuse. That's not fair. Fair? Sarah laughed, and it was a broken sound. You want to talk about fair? I raised 3 extraordinary children alone. I healed from a rejection that should have killed me. I built a life from nothing. And now, because of a prophecy and some political intrigue, you suddenly want us back? You suddenly care? I never stopped caring, Callum said desperately. Sarah, please. I made a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But these are my children. Our children. Let me make this right. Some things can't be fixed, Sarah said quietly. She looked at her children, her beautiful, powerful, perfect children who were watching this whole drama with wide eyes. And I won't put them through the pain of having a father who only wants them because of what they are, not who they are. That's not true, Callum protested, dropping to his knees in front of the triplets. Kai, Luna, Asher, I know I haven't been there. I know I failed you before you were even born. But I swear to you, on my life and my crown, I want to know you, not because you're prophesied or powerful or anything else, because you're mine, because you're part of me. Asher reached out, his small hand touching Callum's cheek with surprising gentleness. You're sad, he observed. Like Mama gets sad at night. Yes, Callum admitted, his voice rough. I'm very sad. Is it because you missed us being born? Luna asked softly. I would be sad about that too. It's because I was stupid, Callum told them honestly. And I hurt your mother, and I missed 3 years of your lives that I can never get back. Kai studied him with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. Do you love Mama? The question hung in the air like a blade. Callum's eyes found Sarah's, and she saw the answer before he spoke it. Yes, he said simply. I never stopped. But I was a fool who didn't realize what he had until it was gone. Then you should tell her sorry, Asher said practically. That's what we do when we mess up. We say sorry, and we mean it. I am sorry, Callum said, his gaze still locked on Sarah's. More than I can ever express it. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved everything, and I gave you nothing but pain. Sarah felt tears threatening, hot and unwelcome. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry, wouldn't show weakness. But looking at him now, at the man she'd loved, the father her children deserved, she felt 3 years of carefully built walls beginning to crack. I can't do this, she whispered. Not now, not yet, maybe not ever. Before Callum could respond, Marcus cleared his throat. Your Majesty, he said urgently, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something else, something critical about Lady Vivian. Callum stood, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. What is it, Marcus? The Beta's expression was grim. Lady Vivian isn't just working with the Shadow Pact to overthrow you, Your Majesty. She's been working with them for years. And according to intercepted communications I found in her quarters? He paused as if the words were difficult to say. She's not Vivian Ashford at all. The real Vivian died 2 years ago in a hunting accident. This woman is a Shadow Pact operative who took her place using glamour magic. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Callum's voice, cold and deadly. Explain. Chapter 4. The room erupted in chaos. That's impossible, someone said. Sarah thought it might have been Dr. Reeves. We've known Lady Vivian for years. She attended court functions, diplomatic meetings. No, Marcus interrupted, his voice heavy with self-recrimination. We knew a Lady Vivian, but how closely did any of us really look? How often did we question why she always wore those heavy perfumes, or why she refused certain pack rituals, or why she never shifted in public? The woman who'd been calling herself Vivian laughed, a dark, bitter sound that sent chills down Sarah's spine. Finally, someone with a brain. Yes, I am a Vivian, just not the one you thought. The real Vivian Ashford was weak, simpering, so desperate for approval she'd do anything to please Daddy. She was also conveniently killed in a hunting accident that I may have arranged. You murdered her. Callum's voice was absolutely flat, devoid of emotion, which somehow made it more terrifying. You murdered a pack member and took her place. I did what was necessary for my alpha. The false Vivian's face shifted, her features hardening, becoming sharper and more predatory. Everything I've done has been for the Shadow Pack, for my father. For the future he's building. Your father, Marcus repeated, pulling a folder from inside his jacket. Alpha Darius of the Shadow Pack, one of the most ruthless, ambitious wolves in the territories. He's been quietly consolidating power for years, absorbing smaller packs, eliminating rivals. He looked at Callum. The real question is, how many others has he planted here? How deep does this infiltration go? Sarah's protective instincts flared. She moved closer to her children, placing herself between them and the unfolding drama. But Kai caught her hand, squeezing gently. There are 5 others, he said quietly. I can smell them. They smell like her. Wrong. Like they're wearing someone else's skin. Every eye in the room turned to the 3-year-old. Callum's expression shifted from shock to grim acceptance. Can you identify them? Son? The word son made something twist in Sarah's chest, but she pushed it aside. Later. She'd deal with her complicated feelings later, when her children weren't in danger. Kai's nose twitched, his young face serious beyond his years. 2 guards at the main door, 1 server from the kitchen, 1 lady in the blue dress who keeps looking at the exits, and 1 man standing behind the big stone pillar in the ceremony hall. Impossible, one of the guards by the door protested. We've been vetted, tested. Take them all into custody, Callum ordered, his voice ringing with absolute authority. Now, if they're innocent, we'll apologize profusely. If they're not, his eyes blazed amber, then they'll answer for their crimes. The guards moved swiftly, but not swiftly enough. The false Vivian threw back her head and released a howl, not the pure, clear sound of a royal pack wolf, but something darker, edged with shadow and malice. It echoed through the palace like a declaration of war, and the palace answered. The guards Kai had identified shifted mid-stride, their bodies exploding into wolves that were wrong. Too large, too dark, with red-tinged eyes that spoke of forbidden magic and corrupted bloodlines. The server dropped his tray with a crash, shifting as he leaped toward the triplets with fangs bared. Sarah moved on pure instinct, throwing herself between the attacking wolf and her children. She had no weapon, no plan, nothing but the desperate need to protect. Light exploded from her palms. Pure, silver lunar light, bright enough to blind. Solid enough to create a shimmering barrier between her children and the threat. The attacking wolf slammed into it and rebounded with a yelp of pain, smoking where the light had touched his fur. Sarah stared at her hands in shock. They were glowing, wrapped in silvery moonlight that felt warm and right and impossibly powerful. The moon goddess's blessing, Dr. Reeves breathed. She's marked you as her champion. But there was no time to process this revelation. The room had descended into chaos. The false Vivian shifted, and her wolf form was nothing like the elegant silver beast she'd always shown the court. This creature was massive and dark as midnight, with eyes like burning coals and fangs that dripped shadow like poison. "Shadow Pack," she snarled, her voice distorted by her wolf form. "Kill the king? Capture the prophecy children?" More wolves poured through the doors, at least 20, all wearing the dark fur and red eyes of the Shadow Pack. Guests screamed and scattered, running for exits that were quickly blocked. Guards engaged the attackers, and within seconds the elegant Crystal Moon Palace had become a battlefield. Callum shifted in a blur of motion, his own wolf form magnificent. Pure black with amber eyes that glowed with royal power. He was larger than any of the attackers, radiating an authority that made even the corrupted wolves hesitate. But they didn't retreat. They came at him in waves, coordinated and vicious, clearly trained for this moment. Sarah maintained her barrier, protecting her children while her mind raced. The lunar light was holding, but she could feel it draining her energy. How long could she keep this up? And what would happen when her strength failed? "Mama, we can help." Asher tugged at her dress, his emerald eyes bright with determination. "Absolutely not. You stay behind." "Mama, look out!" Luna's scream came just in time. Sarah spun, extending her barrier to deflect another attacker, the woman in the blue dress, now shifted into a sleek grey wolf with murder in her eyes. The lunar light burned her, but she kept coming, desperate and determined. A massive black wolf, Callum, intercepted her mid-leap, his jaws closing around her throat. The grey wolf went limp, and Callum tossed her aside with lethal efficiency before wheeling to face the next threat. For a moment, their eyes met, human awareness in wolf form. Sarah saw recognition there, concern, and something that made her traitorous heart skip despite everything. The mate bond, which she'd thought completely severed by his rejection, was singing. It felt like lightning in her veins, like coming home after years of wandering lost. Her wolf, which had been silent and dormant since the rejection, suddenly surged to the surface with a joy that was almost painful. Mate, 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 no. Sarah shoved the feelings down ruthlessly. She didn't have time for this. Her children needed her focused. "We need to get them out of here." Marcus appeared at her side, his own wolf form, a large grey with intelligent eyes, standing guard. "My lady, if you can maintain that barrier, I can clear a path to the secure chambers." "I'm not leaving," Sarah said flatly. "There are innocent people here, children, elders, wolves who can't defend themselves." "Then we make a stand," a familiar voice said. Dr. Frey. Mate Reeves had picked up a fallen guard's silver blade, her face set in grim determination. "The healing wing is through that corridor. If we can get the civilians there, I can seal it with protective wards." Sarah nodded. "Do it. Marcus, help her. I'll—" A massive impact against her barrier cut off her words. The false Vivian had abandoned the fight with Callum and was now throwing herself against the lunar light with savage determination, her dark wolf form wreathed in shadow magic that hissed and spat when it touched Sarah's protection. "Give me the children." Vivian's snarl was barely intelligible through her wolf form. "They belong to the Shadow Pack. The prophecy is ours." "Over my dead body," Sarah growled, and was shocked to hear her own voice deepen, roughen with the edge of her wolf. She hadn't shifted in 3 years, hadn't dared, for fear of drawing attention. But now her wolf was rising, called forth by the threat to her pups, by the presence of her mate fighting beside her, by the pure righteous fury of a mother protecting her young. But before she could complete the shift, before she could fully embrace the power calling to her, her children moved. Kai stepped forward, his small hand raised. Every bird in the palace, every sparrow nesting in the eaves, every hawk perched on the towers, every crow watching from the windows, answered his call. They poured through broken glass and open doors in a storm of wings and talons, diving at the Shadowpack wolves with vicious precision. Luna's eyes rolled back, silver taking over completely. "Left side," she screamed, 3 coming from the left side in 5 seconds. Callum wheeled without hesitation, meeting 3 Shadowpack wolves exactly where and when Luna had predicted. He was ready, positioned perfectly, and the attackers never had a chance. And Asher, her baby, her youngest, planted his small feet and pushed, not physically. Sarah felt it more than saw it, a wave of pure force that radiated from her son like a shock wave. Shadowpack wolves flew backward, crashing into walls and pillars, some of them shifting back to human form from the sheer impact. Then something incredible happened. Kai's hand found Luna's. Luna's hand found Asher's. The three of them stood in a circle, glowing, gold and silver and emerald, three distinct lights that somehow harmonized perfectly. The light grew brighter, brighter. So bright Sarah had to shield her eyes. When it burst outward, it was like a piece of the sun had fallen to earth. The blast of combined energy was pure and devastating. It washed over the room like a tsunami of power, and where it touched Shadowpack wolves, they shrieked and recoiled, their corrupted magic burning away like mist in sunlight. Some collapsed immediately. Others ran, fleeing for the exits with yelps of pain and terror. The false Vivian took the brunt of it directly. Her dark wolf form screamed, a sound no animal should make, as the light seared through her shadow magic like acid through paper. She fell, shifting back to human form, her skin smoking and her eyes wide with shock and agony. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. The triplets swayed, exhausted, and Sarah caught them before they could fall. "I've got you," she whispered fiercely, holding all three close. "I've got you, babies. You are so brave. So strong." Around them, the battle was ending. The Shadowpack wolves who could still move were retreating, dragging their wounded with them. Guards were securing the ones who remained, binding them with silver chains that suppressed their ability to shift. Callum shifted back to human form. Someone threw him a robe, which he shrugged on absently, his attention fixed on Sarah and the children. He moved toward them slowly, as if afraid they'd bolt. "Are they all right?" His voice was hoarse, raw with emotion. "They're exhausted. They need rest." Sarah looked at him over her children's heads, and for a moment, just a moment, she let him see past her walls. Let him see the fear, the love, the fierce protective pride. "They saved us all. They're extraordinary," Callum said softly, "just like their mother." The mate bond pulsed between them. Stronger now, insistent. Sarah felt her wolf pushing at her, wanting to close the distance, to touch, to reconnect with what had been broken. She held firm. "We need to get them somewhere safe, somewhere they can recover. The royal chambers, they're warded, protected. No one gets in without my permission." Callum hesitated. "Please? Let me keep you safe. All of you." Sarah wanted to refuse on principle, wanted to grab her children and run the way she'd been running for 3 years. But looking around at the devastated throne room, at the wounded and frightened pack members, at the very real evidence of a coordinated attack, running wouldn't keep them safe anymore. If anything, it would make them targets. "All right," she heard herself say, "but just until we understand the full scope of this threat." The relief on Callum's face was almost painful to witness. He moved closer, and Sarah caught his scent again. Pine and midnight and wild mountains, mixed now with blood and battle and desperation. It made her wolf whine with need. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for fighting beside me, for protecting our people, for being—" He paused, his amber eyes meeting hers. "For being exactly who you've always been. Strong, fierce, incredible." Sarah's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak, so she just nodded and let him lead the way toward the royal chambers. They'd made it halfway across the throne room when the shadows moved, not metaphorically. The literal shadows in the corners, cast by pillars and tapestries, began to writhe and coalesce, growing darker and more solid until they formed the shape of a man. He stepped from the darkness, fully formed. A tall, broad-shouldered wolf with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that gleamed red even in human form. He wore combat gear, all black, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. Alpha Darius, leader of the Shadowpack. Beside Sarah, Callum went absolutely still. Around them, the guards raised their weapons, but Darius held up a hand lazily. Now, no need for violence. I'm here under flag of truce." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Temporarily, anyway." "You call this a truce?" Callum gestured at the devastation, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "You infiltrated my pack, poisoned my ceremonial wine, attacked my people." "Failed," Darius interrupted cheerfully. "We failed to do all those things thanks to some unexpected variables." His red eyes fixed on the triplets, and Sarah's protective instincts screamed. She pulled her children closer, lunar light flickering to life around her hands. Don't even think about it, she warned. Darius's smile widened. The legendary triplets, the 3 blessed heirs. My daughter was supposed to prevent you from ever being born, you know. Clearly she failed at that too. I'm disappointed in her, truly. Where is she? Callum demanded. Where's Vivienne? Gone, retreated with the survivors. She'll be disciplined for her failure. Something cruel flickered across Darius's face. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to make you an offer. King Callum. I don't negotiate with terrorists. Not even when I have something you want? Darius's smile turned predatory. He raised his hand, and the shadows behind him shifted again, revealing a figure bound in silver chains. A young man, maybe 25, with Callum's dark hair and amber eyes, unconscious and bleeding from a head wound. Sarah heard Callum's sharp intake of breath. Rowan. Your brother, Darius confirmed. Prince Rowan, who we snatched from his diplomatic mission 3 days ago. Nice boy. Bit naive, perhaps, but that runs in your family, doesn't it? If you've heard him, he's alive, for now. Darius's expression hardened. Here's my offer. Give me the triplets and I'll give you back your brother. Refuse, and Prince Rowan dies. Slowly. Painfully. While you listened to his screams through the pack bond, the throne room was silent, except for the sound of breathing. Harsh, angry, frightened breathing from dozens of wolves who'd just watched their world turn upside down. Callum's hands were clenched into fists, his whole body vibrating with tension. The alpha in him was warring with the brother. Sarah could see it. The need to protect his pack, his kingdom, versus the need to save his family. You have until moonrise tomorrow, Darius said, his voice conversational despite the monstrous ultimatum he'd just delivered. Meet me at the border of our territories. Bring the children, and I'll bring your brother. Simple exchange. Everyone goes home happy. Except the children you're going to kill, Sarah said coldly. Or do you think we don't know what happens to prophecy children in the Shadow Pack? Darius's smile never wavered. Who said anything about killing them? They're far too valuable for that. No, we'll raise them properly. Teach them to embrace their power, to use it for the glory of the Shadow Pack, rather than wasting it on weaklings and fools. His eyes glittered. They'll thank us eventually. Children are so malleable at that age. Over my dead body, Callum and Sarah said in unison. Darius laughed, a genuinely amused sound. Funny. That's exactly what Prince Rowan said, right before we broke his arm. He turned, stepping back toward the shadows. Moonrise tomorrow, King Callum. The border, the children for your brother. Don't be late. Wait! Callum lunged forward, but Darius was already gone, melting back into darkness as if he'd never been there at all. Only the image remained, burned into everyone's minds. Prince Rowan, chained and bleeding, held hostage by a madman. Callum spun, his face twisted with anguish and rage. Marcus! Mobilize every available warrior. I want tracking parties sent to... It won't work. The quiet voice belonged to Luna. She'd lifted her head from Sarah's shoulder, her silver eyes unfocused and distant. He's not really there. The prince. He's somewhere else, somewhere underground. Cold. Dark. I can see. She frowned. Stone walls. Water dripping. Magic that hides him from finding spells. A dungeon, Marcus said grimly. He's got holding cells scattered throughout his territory, all of them warded against detection. We'd need weeks to search them all. We don't have weeks, Callum said hoarsely. We have until moonrise tomorrow. He looked at Sarah, and she saw everything in his eyes, the impossible choice, the crushing weight of leadership, the desperate need to save everyone and the knowledge that he might not be able to. We'll find another way, she heard herself say. There's always another way. What if there isn't? The question was raw, stripped of all pretense. Sarah, what if I have to choose between my brother and our children? Our children. The words hung between them, acknowledged finally, undeniable. Sarah looked down at her sleeping triplets because they were sleeping now, exhausted by their display of power, trusting their parents to keep them safe. Then she looked at Callum, at the man who'd broken her heart and might yet break it again. Then we choose them, she said quietly. We choose our children. Because that's what parents do. The pain that crossed his face was almost unbearable to witness. But beneath it, she saw something else. Respect, gratitude, and a love that had never truly died, despite everything he'd done to kill it. "I don't deserve you," Callum whispered. "I never did." "No," Sarah agreed. "You didn't. But these three deserve a father who will fight for them, who will choose them, even when it costs him everything." She paused, then added more softly, "And they deserve a mother and father who can work together, at least for now. So we figure this out, Callum. Together. We find a way to save your brother and protect our children." "How?" The question was desperate. "Sarah, how do we do both?" She looked at him, really looked at him, past the hurt and betrayal, past 3 years of separation. Saw the Alpha King who'd made terrible mistakes, saw the father who'd just discovered he had 3 extraordinary children, saw the mate her wolf still recognized despite everything. "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but we will, because we're not alone anymore." The mate bond pulsed between them, tentative but present, a promise of what they'd once been and might someday be again. Outside, the moon was rising. They had until tomorrow's moonrise to figure it out, to save Rowan, to protect the triplets, to somehow prevent a war that would tear the kingdom apart. 24 hours. It wasn't much time. But Sarah looked at her children, then at their father, and felt something fierce and unbreakable settle in her chest. They would find a way, they had to, because the alternative, losing any of them, was simply not acceptable. Chapter 5. The royal chambers were everything Sarah remembered and nothing like she'd expected to see again. Rich burgundy curtains, mahogany furniture polished to a mirror shine, the massive bed where she'd once slept in Callum's arms, back when she'd believed in forever. She'd walked away from this room 3 years ago with nothing but her broken heart and the clothes on her back. Now she was back, tucking her exhausted children into that same bed while their father paced like a caged wolf by the window. "They'll be safe here," Callum said for the 3rd time, his voice tight. "The wards are the strongest in the kingdom. Nothing gets through without my permission." "Nothing got through the ceremony hall either," Sarah pointed out, smoothing Luna's dark hair back from her forehead. "Until it did." Callum flinched. "That won't happen again. I'll station guards outside the door. Marcus will—" "Callum." Sarah stood, crossing to where he stood silhouetted against the moonlight. "Stop. Just stop for a minute and breathe." He turned to face her, and the anguish in his eyes nearly broke her. "He's my baby brother, Sarah. I raised him after our parents died. I taught him to shift, to hunt, to be a good man. And now he's in a dungeon somewhere, bleeding and afraid because I wasn't careful enough, because I trusted the wrong person. Because Darius is a manipulative bastard who's been planning this for years," Sarah corrected. "This isn't your fault." "Isn't it?" Callum's laugh was bitter. "I was so focused on producing an heir, on securing the succession, that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Vivian played me perfectly." She knew exactly what to say, how to act, what to promise. He paused, his voice dropping. "She promised me Rowan would be released if I mated with her. That was the deal. I mate with her at the ceremony, and the Shadow Pact would return my brother unharmed." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. "That's why you rushed the ceremony, why you pushed for it to happen so quickly. He's been missing for 2 weeks, 2 weeks of not knowing if he's alive or dead, if they're torturing him or—" Callum's hands clenched into fists. "Vivian sent me proof of life videos, showed me messages from Rowan telling me to do whatever they asked. So I did. I agreed to mate with her, to give up any chance of—" He trailed off, his eyes finding Sarah's. "Of fixing what I'd broken with you." Sarah's chest tightened. She wanted to be angry, wanted to rage at him for moving on so quickly, for choosing someone else. But looking at him now, seeing the guilt and grief written across his face, she couldn't quite manage it. "Tell me about Rowan," she said instead. Callum's expression softened slightly. He's 25, idealistic, compassionate, terrible at politics, but brilliant with people. He sees the best in everyone, even when he shouldn't. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. He wanted to be a teacher, not a prince, but after our parents died, he stepped up, became my beta when Marcus was injured, handled diplomatic missions, Tried to bridge the gap between our pack and others. He sounds like a good man. He is. The best. Callum's voice roughened. And Darius wants me to trade him for our children? For 3-year-olds who've done nothing wrong, who just saved everyone in that throne room. He turned back to the window, his shoulders rigid. How do I make that choice, Sarah? How do I decide who lives and who dies? Before Sarah could answer, a small voice piped up from the bed. You don't have to choose. They both spun. Luna was sitting up, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Kai stirred beside her, and Asher sat up with a yawn. Baby, you should be sleeping, Sarah said, moving toward them. Can't sleep. Too much noise in my head. Luna rubbed her eyes with small fists. The sight keeps showing me things. The prince. He's scared, but he's brave. Like you, Mama. Callum approached slowly, kneeling beside the bed. Luna, sweetheart, can you see where he is? In your visions? Luna nodded, her expression solemn. Underground. Stone walls with watermarks. There's a door with funny symbols that glow blue, and chains, silver chains that burn. She tilted her head, focusing on something only she could see. There's a lady there too, the witch lady who hurt Mama. She's in a cage. Morgana, Sarah breathed. Darius has Morgana imprisoned? She's crying, Luna continued. She says she's sorry. She didn't mean for the bad things to happen. They made her do it. Said they'd kill her family if she didn't help them. Sarah exchanged a look with Callum. If Morgana was there, if she was being held against her will, then maybe... Can you see anything else, Luna? Callum asked gently. Anything that might help us find this place? Luna's brow furrowed in concentration. Trees, lots of trees, and a mountain that looks like a sleeping bear. There's a river nearby. I can hear it, and... Her eyes widened. There's a man who smells like Mama, like family. Sarah's heart stopped. What? He smells like you, Luna insisted. Not the same, but close. Like how Kai and Asher and me all smell like family even though we're different. She looked directly at Sarah. He helped you once, when you were sad and hurt. He gave you his coat and told you to be brave. The memory hit like a physical blow. 3 years ago. Stumbling through the forest, bleeding and broken from the rejection, collapsing in the dirt, sure she was going to die. And then, hey, stay with me, I've got you. Strong arms lifting her, a warm coat wrapped around her shoulders. Kind amber eyes, so like Callum's but softer, more gentle, looking down at her with concern. You're Luna Sarah, aren't you? My brother's mate. What happened? Why are you out here alone? She'd told him everything through tears and pain. Told him about the rejection, about the pregnancy she'd just discovered, about her desperate need to escape before Callum could take her children. And Rowan, because of course it had been Rowan, had helped her, given her money, arranged for a car, made sure she reached safety. Then he'd kept her secret, never telling his brother what he'd done. Oh, goddess, Sarah whispered. Rowan. He helped me escape that night. He saved my life. Callum's face went white. What? I didn't know he was your brother, not until now. But he found me in the forest after you rejected me. I was bleeding, barely conscious. He helped me get away, helped me reach Moonhaven safely. Sarah's throat tightened. He could have told you, could have brought me back, but he didn't. He let me go because he believed I deserved better than what you'd given me. The silence that followed was crushing. Callum looked like she'd driven a knife into his chest. My brother helped you escape from me, he said finally, his voice hollow. He knew you were pregnant with my children, and he helped you disappear. He saved us, Sarah corrected firmly, all of us, including you, even though you didn't deserve it. Because if I'd died that night, if the babies had died, you'd be carrying that guilt for the rest of your life. Callum sank into a chair, his head in his hands. I don't deserve either of you. No, Sarah agreed, you don't. But we're not going to debate your worthiness right now. We're going to figure out how to save Rowan before Darius kills him. The exchange is not happening, Sarah cut him off sharply. We are not trading our children for your brother, no matter how much he means to you. And before you argue, know that Rowan would never forgive you if you did. The man who helped me escape wouldn't want you to sacrifice 3 innocents for him. Then what? Callum looked up, desperate. Sarah, what other option do we have? We go get him. The declaration hung in the air. Callum stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You want to infiltrate Shadowpact territory, break into one of Darius's hidden dungeons, rescue Rowan and somehow escape without getting killed in the process. He shook his head. That's suicide. No, it's strategy. Sarah's mind was already racing, pieces falling into place. Luna's visions give us a location, a mountain shaped like a sleeping bear, a river, stone dungeons with blue glowing symbols. That's specific enough to narrow down where Rowan's being held. The Shadowpact controls hundreds of miles of territory. Marcus knows their lands, Sarah interrupted. He's fought them before, hasn't he? He'll know which location matches Luna's description. Callum stood, pacing again. Even if we find the right place, even if we can get past their security, Darius will be expecting a rescue attempt. He'll have guards everywhere. Not if he thinks you're seriously considering the trade. Sarah crossed her arms. You go to the border at moonrise tomorrow, like he demanded. Make a show of considering his offer, buying time, negotiating terms. While you have his attention, we slip in the back door. We? Callum's voice sharpened. You're not going anywhere near Shadowpact territory, absolutely not. I'm going, Sarah said flatly. I have Luna powers now, remember? Powers that can protect people, that can burn through shadow magic. You need me. What I need is for you and the children to stay here safe, where I know Darius can't get to you. And what I need is for my children to grow up knowing their mother fought for them. Sarah's voice rose, despite her efforts to stay calm. I won't hide any more, Callum. I won't let fear make my decisions. If there's a chance to save Rowan without sacrificing our children, I'm taking it. They stared at each other, amber eyes locked with green, 2 dominant wolves, neither willing to back down. He's right, you know. Both adults turned to find Marcus standing in the doorway, his expression grave. Alpha, she's right. If we're going to pull this off, we need Luna Sarah's powers. The dungeons are warded with shadow magic. Her lunar light might be the only thing that can break through. You're supposed to be on my side, Callum growled. I'm on the side that saves Prince Rowan and protects the Triplets, Marcus replied evenly, which means I agree with her plan. He stepped into the room, pulling a map from his jacket. Luna's description matches the old fortress at Bear Mountain. It was abandoned 50 years ago after a territory dispute, but the Shadowpact's been using it as a black site for years. Deep underground tunnels, shadow-warded doors, perfect for keeping prisoners hidden. He spread the map on a nearby table, pointing to a location on the border between territories. There are 3 possible entry points. The main entrance, heavily guarded, not an option. The ventilation shafts, too narrow for adults. And the river access, an underground stream that feeds into the dungeon level through an old drainage system. The river, Sarah said immediately. That's how we get in, through the water. It's risky, Marcus warned. The current is strong, the passage is partially flooded. One wrong turn and you drown. Better than letting Rowan die, Sarah countered. How many people do we need? Small team, 4, maybe 5. Any more and we risk detection. Marcus looked at Callum. With your permission, Alpha, I'd like to lead this mission. Absolutely not, Callum said immediately. I need you. You need me to do this, Marcus interrupted, unusually forceful. Your Majesty, Prince Rowan saved my life once. Let me return the favour. Let me bring him home. Callum's jaw worked, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he gave a jerky nod. Fine. You lead the team, but you take your best warriors. I'm taking Mira, Sarah interjected. Both men stared at her. Your friend from Moonhaven? Callum frowned. What can she possibly... Mira was a Shadowpact warrior before she defected 10 years ago, Sarah said quietly. She knows their protocols, their security systems, their weaknesses. She didn't tell me because she was afraid I'd judge her for her past. But I know now, and we need her expertise. Marcus straightened, respect dawning in his eyes. She's Mira Shadowborn, one of Darius's best soldiers until she refused a direct order to kill civilians. He sentenced her to death, but she escaped. He nodded slowly. Yes, she'd be invaluable. This is insane, Callum muttered, but Sarah could see him starting to accept it. You're proposing to infiltrate enemy territory with a skeleton crew, navigate flooded tunnels, Break through shadow wards, rescue my brother and escape, all while I'm at the border pretending to negotiate. Yes, Sarah said simply. And if something goes wrong? If you get caught, if Darius realizes what we're doing, then you don't make the trade, Sarah said firmly. You protect our children no matter what. That's the deal, Callum. I do this. But if I don't make it back, you don't give Darius what he wants. Promise me. The anguish on his face was almost unbearable. You're asking me to choose between you and Rowan. I'm asking you to protect our children above everything else, Sarah corrected. Even me, even your brother. They're the future, Callum. They're what matters. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then slowly, he nodded. All right, we do it your way. But Sarah, his voice dropped, intimate and raw, you come back to me, to them. You come back, or so help me. I'll storm the Shadow Pack myself to find you. The mate bond pulsed between them, warm and insistent. Sarah felt her wolf respond, felt the pull she'd been resisting for 3 years, suddenly impossible to ignore. I'll come back, she promised. We have things to settle, you and I. I'm not done being angry with you yet. Despite everything, Callum's lips twitched. I look forward to it. 6 hours later, Sarah stood at the edge of Shadow Pack territory, dressed in black tactical gear. Her hair braided tight against her skull. Marcus stood to her right, Mira to her left, and 2 of Marcus's most trusted warriors, a brother-sister team named Cole and Tessa, rounded out their small team. The entrance is 1/2 a mile downstream, Mira said quietly, her eyes scanning the dark forest, past the rapids, through a narrow gorge. The water will be fast and cold. Once we're in the drainage system, we'll have maybe 15 minutes before the wards detect an intrusion. 15 minutes to find Rowan, break through his cell and get out, Marcus summarized. Tight timeline. Luna's vision showed the way, Sarah said, touching the small sketch her daughter had drawn before they left. A surprisingly detailed map of tunnels and rooms. 3 levels down, east corridor, 4th door on the left. That's where he is. And the witch? Tessa asked. We take her if we can, Sarah decided, but Rowan is the priority. They moved into the water together, the current immediately trying to sweep them away. The cold was shocking. Stealing breath and thought, Sarah focused on maintaining her balance, on following Mira's lead as they navigated between rocks and fallen trees. The entrance to the drainage system was exactly where Mira had said. A dark opening barely visible behind a waterfall, so narrow they had to go single file. Inside, the sound of rushing water echoed off stone walls, disorienting and claustrophobic. They swam through flooded passages, crawled through tunnels that scraped their backs, climbed up through vertical shafts that tested every muscle. Sarah's lungs burned, her fingers were numb. But she kept going, kept pushing, because Rowan was here somewhere, and she owed him everything. Finally, they emerged into a dry corridor. Blue symbols glowed along the walls. Shadow wards, just like Luna had described. I'll handle these, Sarah said, stepping forward. She called on the lunar light, feeling it warm her palms, push back the darkness. Where her light touched the shadow wards, they hissed and faded like smoke. They moved quickly through the dungeon, following Luna's map, past empty cells, past old torture equipment that made Sarah's stomach turn, past, help, please? The voice was weak, female, coming from a cell on their left. Sarah stopped, shining her light through the bars. Morgana huddled in the corner, barely recognizable. The witch looked ancient now, her silver-streaked hair dirty and tangled, her face hollow with starvation. She wore a collar of iron that glowed with suppression runes. You, Morgana rasped, her eyes widening. Luna, Sarah, you came. I didn't dare hope. We're here for Rowan, Sarah said curtly. But Luna said you were being held against your will. That Darius threatened your family. My daughter, my granddaughters. Tears tracked through the dirt on Morgana's face. He said he'd kill them if I didn't curse you. I swear I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this. Sarah looked at Marcus, who nodded grimly. We can take her. No time, Cole hissed. The wards are resetting. We've got maybe 5 minutes. Sarah made a split-second decision. Tessa, get Morgana. The rest of us get Rowan. Move. They found him in the 4th cell on the left, exactly where Luna had seen. Rowan lay on a stone bench, his face bruised and swollen, his arm bent at an unnatural angle, but his eyes opened when they burst through the door, and recognition sparked. "Sarah?" His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. "Sarah. Is that you?" "It's me," she confirmed, moving to his side while Marcus worked on the locks. "We're getting you out of here." "My brother, does Callum know?" "He's at the border, buying us time." The locks clicked open, and Marcus carefully lifted Rowan. The prince hissed with pain but didn't cry out. "The children," Rowan said urgently. "Darius wants the prophecy children. You can't let him—" "They're safe," Sarah promised, "but we need to move, now." They retraced their path, moving as quickly as they could with injured passengers. Morgana leaned heavily on Tessa. Rowan gritted his teeth against every jostle, and behind them, Sarah could feel something waking up. The wards realizing they'd been breached, shadow magic stirring like a disturbed hive. "Faster," Marcus urged. "They know we're here." They made it to the water entrance just as alarms began to wail, made it into the current just as guards burst into the drainage corridor behind them. The water swept them away, fast and violent, and Sarah lost sight of the others in the chaos of white foam and darkness. She surfaced gasping, checking for her team. Marcus had Rowan, Tessa had Morgana. Where was Cole? A hand grabbed her from behind. Sarah spun, lunar light flaring, ready to fight, and found herself facing Darius himself. He stood on the riverbank, 20 Shadowpack warriors at his back, looking completely unsurprised. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" he asked, his smile sharp as broken glass. Sarah tried to swim away, but more hands grabbed her, warriors in the water, coordinated and prepared. They dragged her to shore despite her struggles, despite the lunar light that burned their hands. There were too many, and she was too exhausted from the rescue. Marcus roared, trying to reach her, but warriors blocked his path. "Let her go." "Oh, I don't think so." Darius hauled Sarah to her feet, one hand fisted in her hair, the other producing a silver blade that he pressed against her throat. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take Prince Rowan back to your Alpha King, and you're going to tell him that if he wants his precious mate back alive, he'll bring me those triplets by dawn." "Don't," Sarah gasped. "Marcus, don't tell him. Protect the children." "Shh," Darius said mockingly. "Save your breath, Luna. You're going to need it for screaming." He looked at Marcus with cold amusement. "Run along now, Beta. Tell King Callum I've upgraded my terms. The children for his mate. He has until sunrise. After that." The blade pressed harder, drawing blood. "Well, let's just say I've always wondered if rejected mates can survive a second bond breaking. Should be an interesting experiment." Sarah met Marcus's eyes, pouring every ounce of determination into her gaze. "Protect them, no matter what. Protect our children." Marcus's face twisted with anguish, but he nodded once. Then he turned, supporting Rowan, following Tessa and Cole and Morgana as they retreated downstream, leaving Sarah alone with Darius and his warriors, a blade at her throat and the first fingers of dawn beginning to lighten the eastern sky. She'd saved Rowan, saved Morgana, gotten her team out safely, but now Callum would have to choose, his mate or his children. And Sarah already knew which choice he had to make. Chapter 6. Marcus burst through the palace doors carrying Rowan, and the sound that tore from Callum's throat was barely human. "Where is she?" He was across the throne room in seconds, his hands gripping Marcus's shoulders hard enough to bruise. "Marcus, where's Sarah?" The beta's face was a mask of anguish. "Darius has her. It was a trap, Alpha. He was waiting for us. We got Rowan out, got Morgana out, but Sarah," his voice cracked. "She stayed behind to buy us time. He took her." The world tilted. Callum's wolf surged forward, howling its rage and grief, demanding he shift, demanding he run to his mate, demanding he tear apart everything between them. Only years of iron control kept him in human form. "Get the healers for Rowan," he managed, his voice barely recognizable. "Now." Dr. Reeves and her team rushed forward, carefully taking the injured prince. Rowan's eyes found Callum's, and even through the pain and exhaustion, there was understanding there. And guilt. "Brother," Rowan rasped. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't been captured." "Not now," Callum cut him off. But his hand found Rowan's shoulder, squeezed gently. "We'll talk when you're healed. Right now I need to think." But thinking was impossible. His wolf was clawing at him from the inside, the mate bond screaming in distress. Sarah was alive. He could feel that much through their connection. But she was hurt, afraid, and getting farther away with every passing second. "There's more," Marcus said grimly. He pulled something from his jacket, a small recording device. Darius sent a message. Said to play it for everyone. Callum took the device with shaking hands and pressed play. Darius's voice filled the throne room, smooth and mocking. "Greetings, King Callum. I trust you've received your brother back in reasonable condition. Consider him a gesture of goodwill and a demonstration that I keep my promises, unlike you, apparently." The recording crackled, and then Sarah's voice came through. "Don't listen to him, Callum. Don't you dare." A sound like a slap, then silence. Callum's hands clenched so hard the device cracked. Darius continued, "Your mate has spirit. I admire that. It'll make breaking her all the more satisfying. But I'm not an unreasonable wolf. I'm prepared to offer you a choice, a traditional solution to our little problem. Single combat. You and me, alpha to alpha, in the old way. If you win, you get your mate back unharmed. If I win," he paused for effect, "I get your kingdom, your throne, and those delicious prophecy children. We fight at dawn, at the neutral grounds between our territories. Come alone or she dies. Refuse and she dies. Try any tricks and she dies. I think you understand the pattern." The recording ended. Silence crashed over the throne room. Every wolf present was staring at Callum, waiting for his response, waiting for their alpha king to make an impossible decision. "He's baiting you," Marcus said quietly. "This is what he's wanted all along, a legitimate challenge for the throne, with Sarah as leverage to ensure you'll fight." "Then I'll fight," Callum said flatly. "Your Majesty, you can't." "I can, and I will." Callum's voice was steel. "He has my mate, my children's mother, the woman I—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "The woman you love," Rowan finished for him. He'd been moved to a chair. His broken arm could already set and healing. Despite his injuries, his eyes were clear and knowing. "Brother, you need to say it. Out loud. Maybe, for the first time in your life, you need to actually say what she means to you." Callum looked at his younger brother, the one who'd helped Sarah escape, who'd kept her secret, who'd known all along and what Callum had been too blind to see. "I never stopped loving her." The words came out raw and broken. "Even when I thought I was doing the right thing, even when I convinced myself she wasn't enough, even when I said those terrible things." His voice cracked. "I loved her, Rowan. I've loved her from the moment I met her, and I destroyed us both because I was too proud and too stupid to fight for what we had." "Then why?" Rowan demanded, leaning forward despite his pain. "Why did you reject her? I was there, Callum. I saw you look at her like she was everything, and then one day you just changed. Like someone flipped a switch. What happened?" Callum closed his eyes, and the memory came flooding back. The one he'd buried so deep, he'd almost convinced himself it wasn't real. 6 months before the rejection. The royal gardens at twilight. Sarah laughing at something he'd said, her hand in his. Her presence the only peace he'd known in years of ruling. "I love you," she'd told him, her eyes shining. "No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, I love you." "And I love you," he'd replied, meaning it with every fibre of his being. "You're my mate. My Luna. My everything." Then a woman had appeared from the shadows, old, hunched, with eyes that gleamed with malice. "How touching," she'd said, her voice like nails on stone. The great Alpha King, so in love, so blind. "Who are you?" Callum had demanded, moving Sarah behind him protectively. "How did you get past the guards?" "I'm no one, everyone, a messenger, if you will." The old woman had smiled, revealing blackened teeth. "Your enemies send their regards, Your Majesty. They wanted you to know, the woman you love. She's not what she seems. She's a plant, a spy, sent here to weaken you, to make you soft, to destroy you from within." "That's a lie," Callum had snarled, but something was happening. The air had turned thick, cloying, making it hard to breathe. The woman's eyes had begun to glow. Is it? Look at her, truly look at her, and see what she really is. And Callum had looked, had turned to face Sarah, and instead of his beautiful, loving mate, he'd seen corruption, darkness, a creature wearing Sarah's face, with malice in her eyes and poison in her smile. No, he'd whispered, stumbling back. No, that's not, you're not. Callum? Sarah had reached for him, and he'd flinched away from her touch, because all he could see was the enemy, the threat, the one who would destroy everything he'd built. Stay away from me, he'd choked out. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. The hurt on Sarah's face, the real Sarah's face he understood now, had been devastating. But in that moment, twisted by dark magic, he'd believed he was protecting himself, protecting his pack. The old woman had vanished, and Callum had been left with a curse that made him see his greatest love as his worst enemy. A curse so subtle, so insidious, that he'd never even known he was under its influence, until the triplets, until he'd seen his children, flesh of his flesh, blood of his blood, and the pure innocent love in their eyes had shattered the dark magic like glass. I was cursed, Callum said, opening his eyes to find everyone staring at him. 6 months before I rejected Sarah, a dark witch cursed me to believe she was my enemy. Everything I felt for her, all that love, all that connection, it got twisted into suspicion and resentment. I thought I was making a rational choice, thought I was protecting the pack from a threat. He laughed bitterly. I was so certain I was right, so sure that she was the problem. Not me. And the curse broke when you saw the children, Marcus said slowly, understanding dawning. Their presence, their power, their obvious connection to you, it shattered the dark magic. The moment I looked at them, everything came flooding back. Every moment I'd loved Sarah, every smile, every laugh, every tender word. And I realized what I'd done. Callum's hands were shaking. I rejected my true mate while under a curse, Marcus. I threw away the best thing in my life because someone wanted to destroy me, and I let them. Who? Rowan demanded. Who would do this? Darius, Morgana's voice came from the doorway. The witch looked better now, cleaned up, healed, wearing borrowed clothes, but her eyes were ancient and haunted. It was always Darius. He paid me to curse Sarah with the concealment spell. But before that, he had another witch, a stronger one. Curse you, Your Majesty. He's been orchestrating this for years. Removing Sarah, preventing the prophecy children, positioning himself to take your throne. The rage that swept through Callum was so intense it felt like being burned alive. Tell me everything, he growled, every detail, every piece of Darius's plan. Before Morgana could answer, a child's cry echoed through the palace. Mama! Callum ran. Through corridors, upstairs, following the sound of his children's grief to the royal chambers where he'd left them sleeping. But they weren't sleeping now. All three were awake, standing in the centre of the room, holding hands in a circle, their eyes glowing. Gold and silver and emerald, so bright it hurt to look at them. Tears streamed down their faces. Luna was sobbing. Kai's expression was fierce and furious. Asher looked lost and frightened in a way that broke Callum's heart. She's scared, Luna whimpered. Mama's so scared. She's trying to be brave, but she's scared and it hurts and... Her small body shook with sobs. Where is she? Callum dropped to his knees before them, his alpha authority stripped away, just a desperate father trying to comfort his children. Can you see her? Can you tell me where she is? Underground again, Kai said, his young voice oddly steady. Different place. There's rocks and chains and mean wolves watching her. The bad man with red eyes, he's talking to her, saying mean things. He wants to hurt her, Asher whispered, to make her scared so you'll give him what he wants. Over my dead body, Callum swore. That's what he's hoping for, Luna said. And her silver eyes focused on him with disturbing clarity. He wants you to fight him. He thinks he'll win. But Mama... She paused, her face scrunching in concentration. Mama's trying to tell us something. She's thinking really loud, trying to make us hear her. The three children went silent, their eyes growing distant. The glow intensified, pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. And then, impossibly, Callum heard it too, a whisper in his mind that sounded like Sarah. Left flank, old war wound, never healed properly. That's his weakness. Did you hear that? Callum asked urgently. Did everyone? We heard, Marcus confirmed, his eyes wide. Your Majesty, the children have formed a telepathic bond with their mother. They're channeling her thoughts to us. Luna's eyes refocused. Mama says, don't be stupid. Says you can beat him if you're smart about it. Says, her voice dropped to a whisper, says she loves you, still loves you, even though you were mean, even though you hurt her. She never stopped loving you. The words hit Callum like a physical blow. His wolf howled with joy and agony, the mate bond surging stronger than it had in years. Then I'll bring her home, he said fiercely. I promise you, my pups, I'll bring your mother home. How? Asher asked plaintively. You're strong, but the bad man is strong too, and he has mean magic, dark magic. We can feel it. It makes our tummies hurt. I have an idea about that, Morgana said, stepping into the room. She looked at the triplets with a mixture of awe and guilt. Young ones, I owe your mother a debt I can never fully repay. But I can start by helping your father save her. She turned to Callum. Darius's power comes from dark magic he absorbed years ago. It makes him stronger, faster, nearly invincible in combat. But there's a way to neutralize it, to strip away his dark magic and make the fight fair. How? Callum demanded. Blood magic, the oldest, most powerful kind. Morgana's expression was solemn. The three blessed heirs carry light in their blood, the opposite of Darius's darkness. If they willingly give a few drops of their blood, I can create a ward that will protect you from his dark magic and slowly drain his power during the fight. Silence fell. Every eye in the room turned to the triplets. You want our blood? Kai asked carefully. Only if you're willing to give it, Morgana said gently. It won't hurt much, just a small prick, like when the healer tested you, but it must be freely given, with full understanding of what it's for. Blood magic doesn't work otherwise. The three children looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that only they seemed able to have. Finally, Kai turned back to face the adults. He's our daddy, the 3-year-old said simply. We just met him, and he wasn't there for us before, and maybe that's bad. But Mama still loves him. We can feel it through the bond. She's scared he'll die fighting the bad man, and that makes her more scared than anything the bad man could do to her. So if our blood can help keep Daddy safe, so Mama doesn't have to be sad anymore, then we want to give it. Luna nodded solemnly. We choose him. We choose our family. Asher stepped forward, holding out his small hand with heartbreaking bravery. Will it hurt? A little, Morgana admitted. But I'll be very gentle and very quick. I promise. Okay, Asher said, for Mama. Callum felt something crack inside his chest, some last wall of defence shattering completely. These children, who barely knew him, who had every reason to hate him, were offering their blood to save him. Were choosing him as their father, not because he deserved it, but because their mother had taught them about love and sacrifice and family. Thank you, he whispered, dropping to his knees before them. My brave, beautiful children, thank you. Morgana worked quickly and efficiently, pricking each small finger and collecting a few drops of blood in a crystal vial. The children were brave, only Luna whimpering a little. When it was done, Morgana held up the vial, and the blood inside glowed, gold and silver and emerald, swirling together like living light. This will work, she said with quiet confidence. Combined with what your mate told you about his weakness, you have a real chance, Your Majesty. I don't need a chance, Callum said, standing. I need a certainty, because I'm not coming back without her. Then we need to prepare you, Marcus said. The challenge is at dawn, less than 2 hours from now. We need to get you to the neutral grounds. They moved with military efficiency. Armour was brought, light, flexible, designed for maximum mobility. Weapons were offered, but Callum refused them. This would be wolf-to-wolf combat, the old way. No weapons allowed beyond teeth and claws. Morgana chanted over the vial of blood, weaving complex spells that made the air shimmer. Finally, she poured the glowing liquid over Callum's head. It absorbed into his skin instantly, leaving behind a faint shimmer like starlight. "The ward is set," she said. "It will protect you from his dark magic and slowly drain his power. But you must land the killing blow before it runs out. You'll have maybe 20 minutes before the magic fades." 20 minutes? Callum nodded grimly. It would have to be enough. "I want to come," Rowan said, struggling to stand despite his injuries. "Brother, I need you here," Callum interrupted firmly. "Protecting the children. If something goes wrong, if Darius's people try something during the fight, the triplets will need you." He gripped Rowan's shoulder. "You saved Sarah once. Now I'm asking you to protect our children." "Can you do that?" Rowan's eyes were wet, but he nodded. "With my life. And mine," Marcus added. "We'll guard them with everything we have." Callum turned to his children one last time. They stood together, still holding hands, looking at him with those eerily perceptive eyes. "Be brave, Daddy," Luna whispered, "like Mama taught us." "Kick the bad man's butt," Asher added with childish ferocity. "And come home," Kai finished. "Come home with Mama. We want to be a family, a real family." "So do I," Callum promised, "more than anything." The neutral grounds were an ancient clearing between territories, marked by standing stones older than any pack's memory. Dawn was breaking as Callum arrived, Marcus at his side, a dozen royal guards at his back. But as agreed, he walked forward alone, leaving his people at the edge of the clearing. Darius stood in the centre, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Behind him, Shadow Pack warriors formed a dark semicircle. And bound to a stone pillar at the edge of the clearing, her face bruised but her eyes defiant, was Sarah. The mate bond surged the moment Callum saw her. Alive, present, his. Their eyes met across the distance, and despite everything, despite the terror of the situation, Sarah smiled. A small fierce smile that said, "I believe in you." It was all the encouragement Callum needed. "King Callum," Darius called out mockingly, "how good of you to come. I was half afraid you'd do something stupid like refuse my challenge and try another rescue attempt." "Let's get this over with," Callum said flatly. "The terms, single combat, alpha to the death. If I win, Sarah goes free and you withdraw from my territory permanently. If you win," the words tasted like ash, "you get my kingdom and the triplets." "Such confidence," Darius purred. "I do hope you said goodbye to your children. It would be a shame if you never saw them again." "The only one dying today is you," Callum promised. They moved to opposite sides of the clearing. An elderly neutral pack elder stepped forward to officiate, a formality, but one required by ancient law. "The challenge has been issued and accepted," the elder intoned. "Combat will be wolf to the death or submission. No weapons, no interference, no magic." She paused, looking between them. "May the moon goddess guide the worthy. Shift and fight." Callum felt the change sweep over him, bones reshaping, muscles expanding, senses sharpening. His wolf burst free in a tide of power and fury, massive and black, amber eyes blazing with righteous rage. Across from him, Darius shifted into his own wolf form, dark grey with red eyes, larger than any wolf, had a right to be, wreathed in shadow magic that writhed like living smoke. For a heartbeat, they faced each other, predators, alphas, one fighting for power, one fighting for love. Then Darius lunged. The fight was brutal from the first clash. Darius fought with the viciousness of someone who'd never lost, his teeth seeking Callum's throat, his claws seeking vulnerable flesh. The dark magic around him lashed out like whips, trying to confuse and disorient. But the ward held. The triplets' blood magic shimmered around Callum like armour, burning away the shadow magic wherever it touched. And slowly, so slowly, Darius didn't notice at first, his power was draining. Callum fought smart, remembering Sarah's message. Left flank. Old war wound. He circled, feinted, drew Darius into overextending. And there, a slight hitch in the Shadow Alpha's movement when he put weight on his left side. A moment of vulnerability. Callum struck, his fangs sinking deep into Darius's left flank. The Shadow Alpha screamed, an unholy sound, and thrashed free, blood staining his grey fur black. "Impossible," Darius snarled. "My magic, what did you do?" Callum didn't answer, didn't need to. He just kept fighting, kept pressing, kept driving Darius back toward the edge of the clearing, The ward was working, the blood magic doing its job. And with each passing moment, Darius grew weaker while Callum remained strong. But then something changed. Callum felt it through the mate bond first, a surge of emotion from his children, fear, desperation, and then, impossibly, their presence joined his, not physically, but their power, their light, their love. It flooded through him like wildfire. "We're with you, Daddy," 3 voices whispered in his mind. "We're helping." And suddenly Callum's wolf was changing. His black fur began to shimmer, shot through with silver and gold. His size increased, muscles rippling with power that felt divine, blessed, impossible. His eyes, they blazed not just amber but with gold and silver and emerald light, the colours of his children swirling together. The transformation was agony and ecstasy in equal measure. Callum threw back his head and howled, and the sound echoed across the territories like a declaration of war. Everyone watching went silent, shocked, stunned, because before them stood not just an alpha wolf but something more, a hybrid creature of silver and gold, blessed by the moon goddess herself, empowered by the love of the 3 blessed heirs. Darius stared, his red eyes wide with disbelief and fear. What are you?" Callum's answer was a snarl that sounded like thunder. Then he attacked. Chapter 7. The silver-gold wolf that had been Callum moved with impossible grace and power, each step leaving faint impressions of light on the ground. The transformation was complete, not just physical, but spiritual. The love of his children, the blood magic they'd given, and his own true alpha nature had combined into something the werewolf world hadn't seen in generations. A true alpha, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Darius recovered from his shock quickly, but Callum could see the fear now. The shadow alpha's red eyes darted, calculating, searching for advantage where none existed. "Impossible," Darius snarled again, circling warily. "The true alpha transformation is a myth, a legend to scare pups." Callum's response was a growl that vibrated through the ground itself. Then he lunged. The battle that followed was nothing like their first clash. Empowered by his children's blessing, Callum was faster, stronger, more precise. His fangs found purchase in Darius's shoulder. His claws raked across the Shadow Alpha's ribs. Each strike was calculated, controlled, devastating. But Darius was no novice fighter. He'd built an empire on violence and cunning, and he wasn't going down easily. He fought dirty, throwing dust in Callum's eyes, using the terrain to his advantage, targeting old injuries with vicious precision. They crashed together again and again, 2 titans locked in mortal combat. Blood stained the grass. The watching wolves, both Shadow Pack and Royal Pack, stood frozen, unable to look away from the spectacle. Through it all, Callum felt his children's presence in his mind, their support, their love, their absolute faith that he would win. "You can do it, Daddy," Luna's voice whispered. "The bad man is getting tired," Kai observed with clinical precision. "Bite him harder," Asher suggested helpfully. Callum would have laughed if he could. Instead, he pressed his advantage, driving Darius back toward the edge of the clearing. The Shadow Alpha was slowing now, his movements less fluid, his breathing laboured. The combination of his old wound, the draining blood magic, and facing a true alpha was taking its toll. Victory was close. Callum could taste it. Then, through the bond with his children, he felt a spike of pure terror. In the royal palace, chaos erupted. Vivienne, the false Vivienne, the Shadow Pack operative who should have been secured in the dungeons, appeared in the corridor outside the royal chambers. Her face was battered from her earlier capture, her elegant dress torn and bloodstained, but her eyes burned with fanatic determination. "The children," she hissed, her voice distorted by barely controlled shifting. "If I can't have the kingdom, no one will, especially not those prophecy brats." She'd somehow freed herself from the silver chains, somehow evaded the guards, somehow made it all the way to the one place she should never have reached. Dark magic crackled around her hands, borrowed power from Darius, activated by blood rituals and desperate fury. Rowan saw her first. Despite his injuries, despite his broken arm still healing, He threw himself between Vivian and the door to the chambers where the triplets were gathered with their guards. "You'll have to go through me," he said, his voice steady despite the pain he must be feeling. "Gladly," Vivian snarled and attacked. Rowan fought valiantly, but he was wounded and she was enhanced by dark magic. She knocked him aside with a blast of shadow energy that sent him crashing into the wall. He slumped, unconscious, blood trickling from a gash on his temple. The guards engaged next, but Vivian cut through them like paper. Her stolen magic made her nearly unstoppable. Each strike dropping another defender until the corridor was littered with wounded wolves. Then she kicked open the door to the royal chambers. The triplets stood together in the center of the room, holding hands, their eyes glowing with power as they channeled their strength to their father. They looked up as Vivian entered, and identical expressions of determination crossed their small faces. "You're the bad lady," Luna said with surprising calm. "You want to hurt us." "Very perceptive, little prophet," Vivian sneered, dark magic coalescing in her palms. "Your father should have accepted the trade when he had the chance. Now you'll die, and he'll live with that failure forever." She raised her hands, preparing to strike, and Mira crashed into her from the side. Sarah's best friend, the former Shadow Pack warrior, fought with a ferocity born of love and desperation. She had no magic, no special powers, just her skill and her absolute determination to protect the children she'd helped bring into this world. "Run!" Mira shouted at the triplets. "Get out! Find more guards!" But the children didn't run. They couldn't. If they broke their connection, their father would lose the blessing that was keeping him alive against Darius. Vivian and Mira grappled, crashing through furniture, trading brutal blows. For a moment, it seemed like Mira might actually win. She was trained, experienced, and fighting for something more important than power. Then Vivian's hand shot out, dark magic coalescing into a blade of shadow. It pierced Mira's chest, driving deep, finding her heart. The children screamed. Mira gasped, blood blooming across her shirt, her eyes going wide with shock and pain. Vivian yanked the shadow blade free and Mira collapsed, her body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. "No!" Kai's anguished cry echoed through the palace. Vivian turned toward the children, her smile terrible. "Now!" In the neutral clearing, Callum stumbled. The terror flooding through his bond with the children was overwhelming, disorienting. Something was wrong. His pups were in danger. His family was under attack. Darius seized the opening, his fangs sinking into Callum's shoulder, tearing deep. The true alpha roared with pain and rage, throwing the shadow alpha off. But damage was done. Blood poured from the wound. The blessing flickered, dimming as Callum's concentration wavered between the fight before him and the threat to his children. "Distracted?" Darius mocked, circling. "How unfortunate. I wonder what's happening back at your precious palace. Something terrible, I hope." And then, across the miles, through magical projection Darius had set up specifically to torture his enemy, Sarah saw everything. She watched, helpless and bound, as Vivian stood over her children with murder in her eyes. Watched as Mira, brave, loyal Mira, who'd been her first friend in Moonhaven, who'd helped deliver her babies in a snowstorm, who'd never asked questions and always offered support, bled out on the floor. Something broke inside Sarah. Not broke, ignited. The lunar power she'd only recently discovered surged through her like a tidal wave, responding to a mother's primal need to protect her young. The chains binding her to the stone pillar began to glow, heating, and then they shattered. Silver light exploded from her body, so bright that the Shadow Pack guards watching her cried out and stumbled back. Sarah stood, wreathed in moonlight, her eyes pure silver, power radiating from her in waves. "My children," she said, and her voice carried the weight of divine fury. "You threaten my children." The guards tried to stop her. They might as well have tried to stop the tide. Sarah's lunar light washed over them, and they fell, unconscious, but alive. She had no time for unnecessary killing. Every second counted. She ran. Through the Shadow Pack encampment, past stunned warriors who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Her power carved a path before her, bright and unstoppable. At the edge of the clearing, she saw Callum fighting Darius, saw him wounded and struggling, saw him torn between the battle and his fear for their children. Go, she screamed across the distance. I'll handle Vivian. Finish him. Their eyes met for one perfect eternal moment. Then Sarah turned and ran faster, channeling every ounce of power the moon goddess had given her, racing against time itself to reach the palace, to reach her babies. Vivian raised her hands to strike the children down. Luna squeezed her brother's hands tighter. "Mama's coming," she whispered. "Not fast enough," Vivian snarled. The wall exploded inward in a shower of stone and silver light. Sarah strode through the destruction like an avenging angel, her power making the air itself shimmer. She took in the scene instantly. Mira dying on the floor, Rowan unconscious, her children trapped by their need to help their father. "Get away from my babies," Sarah said, her voice absolutely calm, absolutely deadly. Vivian spun, and for the first time since this had started, Sarah saw real fear in her eyes. "You're supposed to be captive? Helpless?" Sarah's laugh was cold. "You threatened my children. Did you really think chains could hold a mother's love?" She attacked, and it was nothing like the tentative use of power she'd shown before. This was lunar magic in its purest, most devastating form. Light and fury, protective and fierce, unstoppable as the moon's pull on the tide. Vivian tried to counter with her dark magic. Shadow met light in the center of the room, clashing with enough force to shatter windows and crack the floor. The two women, one fighting for power and revenge, one fighting for her children's lives, were evenly matched for long, terrible seconds. Then Sarah thought of Mira, of her friend, bleeding on the floor. Of 3 years, raising her children alone, of every moment of pain and fear and desperate love. The lunar light surged brighter, brighter, so bright it burned away the shadows like mist in sunlight. Vivian screamed as the light engulfed her, burning through her stolen magic, searing her corrupted flesh. She fell to her knees, then to her face, and lay still. Sarah stood over her, chest heaving, power still crackling around her. Then she turned and ran to her children. "Mama!" All three crashed into her at once, small arms wrapping around her waist, their blessed glow mixing with her lunar light. "I'm here," she gasped, holding them close. "I'm here, babies. You're safe. You're—" The power drain hit her like a freight train. She'd pushed too hard, too fast. Used magic she barely understood. Channeled power that would have taxed a master witch. The lunar light flickered, faded, and went out. Sarah's legs buckled. She would have fallen if not for small hands trying desperately to hold her up. "Mama! Mama, don't go away!" Asher's voice was terrified. "Stay with us," Kai pleaded. Luna's silver eyes filled with tears. "Please don't leave us like the nice lady did." Sarah's gaze found Mira. Her friend had dragged herself to the doorway, leaving a trail of blood, her face pale as death, but her eyes clear. "The children," Mira whispered. "Are they safe?" Sarah managed, crawling toward her friend. "You saved them, Mira. You saved my babies." "Good." Mira's smile was peaceful despite the blood on her lips. That's good." Her hand found Sarah's, squeezed weakly. "You should know. Your friend is terrible at keeping secrets." "Figured out about Callum months ago. The children's names? Kai, Luna, Asher." "What about them?" Sarah's voice broke. "The Blackthorn family constellation, the hunter, the moon, the blessed star." Mira coughed, blood speckling her chin. "You named them after his family legacy. Even when you were angry, even when you ran, you were waiting. Waiting for him to find his way back to you. Waiting for your family to be whole." Sarah's throat closed. She'd chosen those names half-consciously, drawn to their meanings without fully understanding why. But Mira was right. Some part of her had always hoped, always believed that somehow, someday, they'd find their way back to each other. "Tell him," Mira whispered, her eyes starting to glaze. "Tell that stupid Alpha King that you never stopped loving him. Tell him not to waste any more time. Life's too short for pride and fear. Mira, no, stay with me. The healers—" Too late. Mira's smile was sad, but content. "Take care of those babies, Sarah, and let yourself be happy. You deserve it. You all do." Her hand went limp, her eyes went empty, and Sarah's best friend, her sister in all but blood, was gone. The scream that tore from Sarah's throat was pure grief. The children cried with her, all of them collapsing together, surrounded by destruction and death and the terrible cost of victory. That's how Marcus found them, moments later, rushing in with reinforcements finally freed from the battle below. He took one look at the scene. Vivienne defeated, Mira dead, Sarah and the children devastated, and his face went hard. "The healers," he barked at his men. "Get them now. And someone tell me what in the goddess's name happened here." But Sarah couldn't answer. The darkness was pulling at her, the magical exhaustion dragging her down. She'd used too much power, pushed too hard. Her body was shutting down, unable to sustain what she'd done. "Mama," Luna's frightened voice seemed to come from very far away. "Mama, your light is going out." "Stay with us," Kai begged. "Please," Asher sobbed. "Please don't go where we can't follow." Sarah tried to speak to reassure them, but no words came. The darkness was too strong, too complete. Her last thought before unconsciousness claimed her was a prayer. "Please, Moon Goddess, let Callum win. Let him come home to our children. Don't let them be orphans." In the neutral clearing, Callum felt Sarah's light go out through their bond. For one terrible eternal moment, he thought she was dead. The mate bond went cold, distant, barely there. The rage that consumed him was absolute. He turned on Darius with a roar that shook the earth itself. The true alpha transformation flared brighter than ever, fueled by grief and fury and desperate love. He didn't fight strategically anymore, didn't conserve energy or look for openings. He simply attacked. Darius tried to defend himself, tried to fight back, but it was useless. Callum was unstoppable, a force of nature given wolf form. His fangs found Darius's throat, his claws tore through the Shadow Alpha's chest. When Darius fell, it was final. The Shadow Alpha lay in the blood-soaked grass, his red eyes dimming, his breath rattling. "How?" he gasped. "How did you become—" "Love," Callum said simply, his voice rough even in wolf form. "Something you never understood." Darius laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "Then you've already lost. Your mate, I felt her die, felt the bond break." "She's not dead," Callum snarled, even as terror gripped his heart. "She can't be dead. Keep telling yourself that." Darius's eyes went empty, his body going still. By ancient law, by the right of combat, Callum had won. Shadowpact territory was now his. The threat was ended. But none of it mattered if Sarah was Alpha. Marcus's voice cracked across the clearing. "You need to come now. It's Luna, Sarah. She's—" He couldn't finish, but his expression said everything. Callum shifted back to human form in a blur, not caring about his nakedness, and ran. He found Sarah in the royal chambers, laid out on the bed surrounded by healers who were working frantically. Her face was pale as death, her breathing shallow, and even from the doorway he could barely feel the mate bond. The triplets were huddled together in the corner, being comforted by a tearful Dr. Reeves. When they saw Callum, they ran to him, crashing into his legs, all of them crying. "Daddy, you have to save her," Luna sobbed. "We can't feel her anymore." "She used too much magic," Kai said, his young voice shaking. "All her light, all her power. She used it to save us, and now it's gone and she's going away." "No," Callum said fiercely, dropping to his knees and pulling all three children close. "No, she's not going anywhere. I won't allow it." "Your Majesty," Dr. Reeves approached, her face grave. "The magical exhaustion is too severe. Her body is shutting down. The healers can stabilize her temporarily, but without a significant infusion of life force, of power, she won't last the night." "Then give her mine," Callum said immediately. "Take whatever she needs." "It's not that simple. The rejected mate bond. It's damaged, barely functional. Any attempt to transfer power could—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "There is one option. The mating ritual. If you complete it properly this time, the bond would restore itself. Your power would become hers, and hers yours. It might be enough to save her. Then we do it. Now." "Your Majesty, the mating ritual is sacred. It requires the moon temple, the proper ceremonies." "I don't care about ceremonies." Callum's alpha power rolled out, making everyone in the room flinch. "Tell me what I need to do to save my mate, and I'll do it. Now. Dr. Reeves swallowed hard. The Moon Temple is 2 miles from here. She'd need to be on the sacred altar. You'd need to perform the blood binding while the moon is directly overhead, which gives us about 40 minutes. And Your Majesty, there's no guarantee it will work. The bond was rejected. The ritual might not take, or it might, she hesitated. Or it might what? Or it might bind you to her death. If she dies during the ritual, you die with her. Silence. Then Callum stood, gently extracting himself from his children's arms. Prepare her for transport, he said, and someone tell me where exactly the Moon Temple is. Alpha, you need to think about this. I've done enough thinking, Callum cut Marcus off. Enough planning, enough calculating, enough trying to do the logical thing. 3 years ago, I lost her because I didn't fight for her. I won't make that mistake twice. If there's a chance, any chance, to save her, I'm taking it. He crossed to the bed where Sarah lay, barely breathing. Even unconscious, even dying, she was beautiful. The mother of his children, the love of his life, the mate he'd been too blind and stupid to appreciate until it was almost too late. I'm not losing you, he whispered, brushing dark hair back from her pale face. Not when I just found you again. Not when our family is finally within reach. So you hold on, Sarah. You hold on, and I'll bring you back. I swear it. He lifted her carefully, cradling her against his chest. She was so light, so fragile. Nothing like the fierce warrior who'd broken free from captivity to save their children. Daddy? Luna's small voice stopped him at the door. Will the ritual hurt Mama? No, sweetheart. It will heal her. Promise? Callum met his daughter's silver eyes, so like her mother's, and saw the fear there. The desperate need for reassurance that he wouldn't let them lose another person they loved. I promise, he said. On my life and my crown. I promise. Then he carried Sarah out of the palace, Marcus and the healers following, the triplets held back by Dr. Reeves despite their protests. The sky was beginning to lighten with the approaching dawn, but the moon still hung overhead, full and bright and perfect. The Moon Temple stood on a hill overlooking the palace grounds, ancient and sacred, built by the first werewolves to honour the goddess who'd given them their gifts. Callum climbed the steps 2 at a time, ignoring his own exhaustion and injuries, focused only on reaching the altar before time ran out. The altar itself was a flat stone slab, engraved with silver runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Callum laid Sarah down carefully, arranging her as if she were simply sleeping, not dying, not fading away before his eyes. What do I do? He asked the elderly priest who'd appeared from the temple's shadows. The priest's expression was solemn. The blood binding requires blood from both participants willingly given. But she's unconscious, she can't consent. She already consented years ago, when she accepted me as her mate the first time. Callum's voice was raw. The bond was damaged, not destroyed. She's still my mate, and I'm still hers. Now tell me what I need to do. The priest studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Cut your palm. Let your blood fall on the runes. Then place your bleeding hand over her heart and speak the binding words. Callum used a ceremonial blade to slice across his palm, deep enough that blood flowed freely. He let it drip onto the altar, watching as the silver runes began to glow brighter, responding to alpha blood, to royal blood, to blood given in love and desperation. Then he placed his bleeding palm over Sarah's heart, feeling the faint flutter of her heartbeat beneath his hand. By blood and bone, by moon and stone, he recited, the ancient words flowing from some deep memory, I claim you as mine. By breath and life, by mate and wife, I bind myself to you. Let my strength be yours. Let my power flow through our bond. Let death itself step aside, for we are one, now and always, forever. The moonlight intensified, focusing into a beam that struck the altar directly. Power surged, through Callum, through the bond, into Sarah. He felt his life force flowing into her, felt the damaged mate bond suddenly flaring bright and whole and perfect. It hurt. Goddess, it hurt, like having his soul ripped open and exposed to the universe. But he didn't let go, didn't pull back, just held on and poured everything he had into his mate, into the bond, into the desperate need to save her. "Don't leave me, Sarah," he thought desperately, knowing she could hear him through the bond now. "I just found you again. I just found our family. Please, please come back. I love you. I've always loved you. I never stopped, even when I was cursed, even when I pushed you away. My wolf knew. My heart knew. You're mine and I'm yours, and we're supposed to grow old together, watching our children have children of their own. Don't leave me. Please, don't leave me." The moonlight grew impossibly bright, blinding everyone watching. When it finally faded, Callum collapsed beside the altar, his hand still pressed to Sarah's heart, his energy completely spent. But beneath his palm, her heartbeat was stronger, and through their bond, renewed and whole, he felt her stir, felt her begin to wake. Chapter 8. The mate bond hummed between them, renewed and whole, stronger than it had ever been. Callum felt Sarah's consciousness stirring, felt her life force strengthening as his power flowed through their connection. But something was missing, something crucial. The bite, the physical mark that would seal their bond forever, that would declare to every wolf in existence that they belonged to each other. He'd marked her once, years ago, before the curse. But that mark had faded when he rejected her, leaving only a faint scar. Now, with the moonlight still bathing them both in silver radiance, Callum leaned down and pressed his lips to that scar on Sarah's neck. "Forgive me," he whispered against her skin, "for everything. For being too blind to see what was right in front of me, for hurting you, for wasting 3 years we should have spent together." Then gently, reverently, he bit down. His fangs pierced her skin, not deep enough to truly hurt, but enough to leave his mark, to seal their bond in the oldest way their kind knew. He felt the moment it took, felt the snap of connection that went beyond magic or ritual. This was primal, eternal, unbreakable. Sarah gasped, her eyes flying open. They were silver bright, glowing with lunar power and newly restored life. She stared up at him, and Callum saw 1,000 emotions flash across her face: confusion, recognition, relief, love. "Callum." Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "I'm here," he said, his own voice rough with emotion. "I've got you. You're safe. Our children are safe. Everything's going to be all right." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Mira." "I know." He gathered her close, holding her as gently as if she might break. "I'm so sorry, love. She died a hero. She saved our children." Sarah sobbed against his chest, grief and relief and exhaustion pouring out. Callum just held her, one hand stroking her hair, the other pressed against her back, where the mate mark was now mirrored. They stayed that way for long minutes while the moon watched over them and the priests gave them space to mourn and heal. Finally, Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. "The triplets. I need to see them. I need—" "Mama!" 3 small bodies came barreling up the temple steps, having apparently escaped whatever poor soul was supposed to be watching them. Kai, Luna, and Asher threw themselves at their parents with enough force to nearly knock them both over. "You're awake," Luna sobbed, her small arms wrapped around Sarah's waist like a vice. "You didn't go away," Asher added, his face pressed into Sarah's shoulder. Kai, always the most composed, still had tears streaming down his face as he held on to both parents. "We felt the bond snap into place. We felt Daddy save you." Sarah looked at Callum over their children's heads, and something passed between them: gratitude, understanding, and the beginning of forgiveness. Then she gathered all 3 children close, breathing in their scent, reassuring herself that they were real and whole and safe. "I'm sorry I scared you," she whispered, "but Mama's okay now. We're all okay." "Are you really?" Luna pulled back to study her mother's face with those unnervingly perceptive silver eyes. "You feel different, brighter, like Daddy's light is mixed with yours now." "The mate bond," Dr. Reeves explained, approaching carefully. "It's fully restored, stronger than before, actually. The ritual worked perfectly." She smiled at Callum. "You did it, Your Majesty. You saved her." "She saved herself first," Callum corrected, his hand finding Siraj's. "By saving our children. By being exactly who she's always been. Fierce and brave and willing to sacrifice everything for the ones she loves." Their fingers intertwined, and Callum felt the bond pulse warmly. Not just connection, but communication. He could sense Sarah's emotions now, her grief for Mira, her overwhelming relief that their children were safe, her exhaustion, and beneath it all, something that made his heart soar. Love. Still there, despite everything, battered and cautious, but present. The moonlight, which had begun to fade with the approaching dawn, suddenly intensified again. Everyone on the temple grounds froze as the light coalesced into a figure, tall and ethereal, with silver hair that flowed like water and eyes that held the wisdom of eternity. The moon goddess herself. Every wolf present dropped to their knees in reverence. Even the triplets went still and quiet, staring at the divine figure with wide eyes. "Rise," the goddess said, her voice like wind chimes and thunder combined. "You need not kneel before me, not today. When we celebrate such a victory." Callum helped Sarah to her feet, keeping her steady when she swayed. The goddess moved toward them, her form flickering between solid and translucent, as if she wasn't entirely present in their world. "Seraphina," the goddess said warmly, reaching out to cup Sarah's face. "My brave daughter, you have endured so much, lost so much, but you never lost faith. Never stopped protecting what mattered most." "Your Grace," Sarah whispered, fresh tears falling. "Mira, my friend. She died protecting my children. Is there anything? Can you—" "Her soul rests in my embrace," the goddess said gently. "She passed with honor, with purpose, with love, and she will be reborn when the time is right, into a life of peace and joy. This I promise you." Sarah sagged with relief. Callum held her up, his own throat tight with emotion. The goddess turned her attention to the triplets who huddled together, uncertain how to react to a divine being. She knelt before them, bringing herself to their level. "And you three," she said, her smile radiant, "my special gifts, my 3 blessed heirs. Do you understand what you are, what you're meant to become? We're supposed to help people," Kai said carefully, "to make the pacts, not fight anymore. We see things that haven't happened yet," Luna added, "and stop bad things from happening. And I'm really strong," Asher announced, then added more quietly, "Is that okay, being strong?" The goddess laughed, a sound like silver bells. "It is more than okay, little one. Each of you carries a gift I chose specifically for you. Kai's gift of command, to lead with wisdom. Luna's gift of sight, to guide with foresight. Asher's gift of strength, to protect with power. Together, you will unite the packs. Bring peace where there has been war. Create a new era for our kind." She stood, addressing everyone present. "The prophecy of the 3 blessed heirs is fulfilled this day. Born of the strongest bloodline, blessed with power beyond measure, they will lead us into a golden age. But they cannot do it alone. They need their parents, both their parents, to guide them, to show them that love is stronger than hate, that forgiveness is more powerful than vengeance, that family is worth fighting for." Her gaze settled on Callum. "Alpha King, you made terrible mistakes. You let darkness cloud your judgment and nearly destroyed your greatest blessing. But you have learned, grown, fought your way back to the light. Do you swear to protect this family? To lead with wisdom rather than pride? To never again let anything come between you and your mate?" "I swear it," Callum said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. "On my life, on my crown, on everything I am, I swear it." The goddess nodded, then turned to Sarah. "And you, Seraphina, you have every right to walk away, to raise your children alone as you have been. No one would blame you for refusing to forgive what was done to you. But I ask you, can you see past the pain to the truth underneath? Can you find it in your heart to give this family the father they deserve and yourself the mate you once loved?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her hand tight in Callum's. Finally, she spoke. "I need time," she said honestly. "Time to heal, time to grieve, time to learn if we can truly be partners, or if the wounds are too deep." She looked up at Callum. "But I'm willing to try, for our children and for the part of me that never stopped loving you, even when I wished I could." "That's all I ask," Callum said, bringing her hand to his lips. "Time, and the chance to prove I'm worthy of you." Then it is settled, the goddess declared. Seraphina and Callum Blackthorn, king and queen of the royal pack, parents of the 3 blessed heirs. May your bond be eternal, your love unbreakable, and your family the foundation of a better world. She began to fade, her form dissolving back into moonlight. But her voice lingered, warm and approving. You were never barren, Seraphina, never cursed with an empty womb. I was simply waiting for the moment when your love would be tested and proven true. Your children were conceived in love, protected by divine grace, and born exactly when they were meant to be. Everything that has happened, all the pain and separation and struggle, has led to this moment. Trust in that. Trust in each other, and trust that your story is far from over. Then she was gone, leaving only the fading dawn and a family standing together at last. Morgana approached slowly, her expression hesitant. Your Majesties, there's something else you should know, about the timing of everything. What is it? Sarah asked wearily. The goddess spoke truth. You were never truly barren. The test Dr. Morrison performed, the one that declared you unable to conceive, it showed what appeared to be damage to your womb, scarring that should have prevented pregnancy. Morgana paused. But that wasn't damage, it was divine protection. The goddess herself had placed a ward on your womb, preserving your fertility until the exact right moment. What moment? Callum asked. The night before you rejected her, Morgana said quietly. That was the night the triplets were conceived, the very last time you were together before the curse fully took hold. The goddess knew what was coming, knew about Darius's plot, about the curse that would poison your mind, and she ensured that your love would create life before darkness could prevent it. Sarah's hand flew to her stomach, as if she could still feel that long-ago moment. I was already pregnant when he rejected me. Yes, and the divine protection hid the pregnancy, even from you, until it was too late for anyone to interfere. By the time you realized you were carrying the children, you were too far away and too well hidden for Darius or his people to find you. Morgana smiled sadly. The moon goddess protected them, protected you. Even when it seemed like everything was falling apart, she was weaving a greater plan. Callum made a sound like he'd been struck. Everything I put you through, everything I said, and you were already carrying our children. You didn't know, Sarah said, though her voice was tight with old pain. The curse made sure of that. It doesn't matter. I should have. He stopped, shaking his head. No, the goddess is right. There's no changing the past. I can only try to do better going forward. 3 days later, Callum called a gathering of all the packs. Word had spread quickly about the true Alpha transformation, about the defeat of Darius, about the 3 blessed heirs and the prophecy fulfilled. Alphas and representatives from dozens of packs assembled on the royal grounds, curious and cautious in equal measure. Callum stood before them with Sarah at his side, both dressed in formal ceremonial robes. The triplets stood between them, looking tiny but fierce, their unusual eyes scanning the crowd without fear. 3 years ago, Callum began, his voice carrying across the assembled wolves, I made a terrible mistake. I rejected my true mate, Seraphina Thorne, believing her unable to provide heirs for our pack. I was wrong. Not just about her ability to conceive, though as you can see, our 3 beautiful children prove how wrong I was about that, but about everything that matters. He turned to Sarah, and the crowd saw their Alpha King do something unprecedented. He dropped to one knee. I was cursed by dark magic to see my mate as an enemy, but the curse only worked because I let pride and pressure make me vulnerable to it. I valued heirs over love, power over connection, legacy over the woman standing beside me. His voice broke. Sarah, before all these witnesses, before the moon goddess herself, I apologize. For the pain I caused you. For the years you spent alone raising our children. For every moment you doubted your worth because I was too blind to see your value. The crowd was absolutely silent. Sarah's eyes were wet with tears, but she stood tall and proud. Callum continued, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. But if you'll give me one, if you'll stand beside me, not as someone I rescued, but as my equal, my partner, my queen, I swear I will spend every day of my life proving that I've learned from my mistakes, that I understand what truly matters. He looked around at the assembled packs. "And I declare here and now, before everyone, that I will not continue as Alpha King unless Seraphina agrees to rule beside me as Queen Luna. Not as my mate who stands behind me, but as my equal who stands with me. The throne means nothing if I don't have her. The crown is worthless if she's not there to share it." The declaration sent ripples of shock through the crowd. An alpha publicly subordinating his rule to his mate's approval? Unheard of. Sarah looked down at Callum, at this powerful man who'd been humbled by love and loss and hard-won wisdom. She thought of Mira's dying words, "Let yourself be happy. You deserve it." She thought of her children, who needed both parents, who deserved to see their father earn back their trust, to learn what real partnership looked like. And she thought of her own heart, which had never truly stopped loving him despite everything. "Stand up," she said softly. Callum rose, hope and fear warring on his face. "I forgive you," Sarah said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not because what you did was forgivable, but because we were both victims of manipulation, because the moon goddess herself has shown us that our pain had purpose, because our children need us both, and I won't let my hurt deprive them of their father." She paused, her expression growing fierce. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You will earn the triplets' trust over time. Not demand it. You will prove through action, not words, that you've changed. And if you ever, ever make me or our children feel less than cherished, I will take them and leave, and no power in any pack will stop me." "Agreed," Callum said immediately. "All of it. Whatever you need, whatever they need, I'll prove it." Sarah nodded, then took his hand and faced the crowd together. "I accept the role of Queen Luna, not as a prize he's won, but as a partner he's earning the right to stand beside. Our family will lead these packs into a new era, one based on mutual respect, true partnership, and the understanding that strength comes from love, not domination." The crowd erupted, some in approval, some in shock. But the energy was electric. Change was coming. Real, fundamental change to how packs operated, how mates were treated, how power was shared. The triplets, who'd been remarkably patient during the speeches, chose that moment to act. As one, they ran to Callum, throwing their small arms around his legs. "Daddy," Kai said clearly, "Mama says you're going to be a good daddy now." "We believe her," Luna added, her silver eyes solemn. "I saw it in my dreams, saw us growing up together, saw you teaching us stuff and being there when we're scared and loving Mama the way she deserves." "So we choose you too," Asher finished. "Not just because you're our father, but because we want you to be our daddy." The distinction was clear to everyone listening. Father was biology. Daddy was earned. Callum dropped to his knees again, gathering all three children close, tears streaming freely down his face. "Thank you," he whispered brokenly. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I love you, all three of you, so much." "We know," Kai said, patting his father's cheek with surprising gentleness. "We always knew you'd come. Luna saw it. She told us to be patient, that Daddy just needed time to remember he loved us." "I never forgot," Callum said fiercely. "I just didn't know you existed. But now that I do, now that I've found all of you, I'm never letting go." Sarah watched them, her heart both breaking and healing at the same time. They had such a long way to go. So much damage to repair, so much trust to rebuild. But looking at her mate and her children together for the first time, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. 5 years later, Sarah stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, one hand resting on her swollen belly, watching as her 8-year-old triplets trained in the courtyard below. They'd grown so much, still small for their age, but powerful and coordinated in ways that continued to amaze everyone who saw them. Kai directed a flock of hawks through a complex aerial pattern, his young face serious with concentration. Luna sat cross-legged on a bench, her eyes distant as she saw something in the future, occasionally calling out warnings or advice to her brothers, and Asher lifted training weights that would challenge an adult wolf, his emerald eyes bright with satisfaction at his own progress. "They're extraordinary," Callum's voice came from behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, careful of her pregnant belly. "Just like their mother." Sarah leaned back against him, comfortable in a way that had taken years to achieve. The first year after their reunion had been hard, full of arguments and setbacks and moments when she'd almost given up. But Callum had been patient, had proven, day after day, that he meant his promises. He'd stepped back and let her take the lead in packed decisions, had deferred to her judgment on everything involving the children, had attended therapy sessions with healers who specialized in curse trauma and relationship recovery, had slowly, painfully earned back her trust. And somewhere along the way, trust had blossomed back into love, real love, mature and tested and stronger for having survived the fire. "The twins are restless today," Sarah said, pressing his hand more firmly against her belly. "I think they want to meet their big siblings." "Soon," Callum murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck, right over the mate mark that had never faded this time. "Dr. Reeves says another month at most." "Twins," Sarah shook her head, still marvelling at it. "After being told I could never have children, now I've been blessed with 5. The moon goddess has a sense of humour." "The moon goddess knows exactly what she's doing," Callum corrected. He turned her gently to face him, his amber eyes warm with love. "Just like she knew what she was doing when she made you my mate. I was a fool to ever reject you, Sarah. You were never barren. You were waiting to bless me with everything. With love and partnership and these incredible children. With a purpose bigger than I could have imagined. With a future I don't deserve, but will spend my life being grateful for." Sarah reached up to cup his face, her thumb brushing across his cheekbone. "We were always meant to find our way back to each other. Even when it seemed impossible, even when the curse tried to destroy us, our love was stronger." "Is stronger," Callum corrected, leaning down to kiss her. It was soft and sweet, the kiss of mates who'd weathered storms and come out stronger on the other side. "Mama! Daddy!" Asher's voice carried up from the courtyard. "Come watch. I can lift 2 weights at the same time now." "We should go," Sarah laughed, pulling back, "before he tries to lift 3 and hurts himself." "In a minute." Callum held her close for another moment, his forehead resting against hers. "I just want to remember this perfect moment, our children healthy and happy below us, you safe and pregnant with our twins, the packs united and at peace. Everything we fought for, everything we nearly lost, right here in this moment, it's all real." "It's real," Sarah confirmed softly, "and it's ours." They went down together to join their children, Callum's hand never leaving Sarah's. The triplets immediately swarmed them, showing off their new skills, arguing over who was making the most progress, begging to hear stories about when they were babies. As the sun set over the Royal Pack lands, now expanded to include the reformed Shadow Pack territory, united under the banner of the 3 blessed heirs, Sarah looked around at her family and felt complete. Kai, so serious and thoughtful, already showing signs of the wise leader he'd become. Luna, dreamy and perceptive, her visions growing clearer and more controlled with each passing day. Asher, strong and gentle, his power tempered by an enormous heart. And Callum, her mate, her partner, the man who'd lost his way and fought his way back to her, earning every bit of happiness they'd built together. Above them, the moon rose full and bright, the moon goddess watching over her blessed family. "Thank you," Sarah whispered to the sky, one hand on her belly where 2 more miracles grew. "For never giving up on us. For seeing what we could become, even when we couldn't see it ourselves." The moonlight seemed to pulse in response, warm and approving. "What are you thanking the moon for?" Luna asked, having noticed her mother's whisper. "For second chances," Sarah said, pulling her daughter close. "For true love. For you 3 and the twins, and this beautiful life we get to live together." "We're lucky," Kai observed, leaning against Callum's side. "The luckiest," Callum agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "All of us." "Even luckier than the people in Mama's stories?" Asher asked. "Even luckier than that," Sarah promised, "because this wasn't a fairy tale or a story. This was real, messy, and complicated and hard-won and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. They'd been broken and lost and torn apart, but they'd found their way back to each other, built something stronger from the pieces, and created a family that would change the world. The prophecy was fulfilled. The three blessed heirs would lead the Pax into an era of peace. But more importantly, more fundamentally, they would grow up surrounded by love, would see their parents as equals and partners, would learn that mistakes could be forgiven, that darkness could be overcome, and that family was worth fighting for. Sarah looked at Callum over their children's heads and smiled. He smiled back, the expression full of love and gratitude and promise. They'd come so far, survived so much, and the best was yet to come. Above them, the moon shone bright and eternal, blessing them all. Their love story, painful and beautiful, broken and restored, had come full circle at last. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share, and subscribe for more.